Oh, hello. You.
Good morning. Test,
Okay.
test,
Jet boy, jet girl.
test, test.
Jet boy, jet girl.
Gonna tell you rather well.
Huh?
Gonna make you penetrate. I wanna make you be a girl.
Oh, is that a song?
Yeah. Yeah, ça plat pour moi.
Oh, Joe would know them.
And the Damned. Do you remember the Damned?
Oh, yeah. Joe's a real goth freak.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
played it a few times. Problem played it a few times, Jet Boy, Jet Girl.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it's the Damned.
Yeah, Plastic Patron did it in French, and then the Damned did it in English.
All right. Wow. Yeah, I think I remember. Yeah.
I could hear somebody else.
It's I've got the Mountain Goats playing their new album. But it probably doesn't sound like music. It just sounds like muted sounds or something. I'll pause it. Oh, it's
like it's underwater.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's the audio or whatever. It's good. Like I'm talking to Aaron. He's quite, technically and whatever orientated, and I'm like, no, it's completely social. This editing. It's just like the simple thing where we cut out bits, but then it's also true that you want to have music or whatever we want.
Some people have slick titles and such like.
Well, I said I'll learn technology slowly in my own way, and I mean it's the editing process itself. I would, if I was to do a some kind of thesis or whatever, you would say, oh, the editing, once we experimented with editing, the participants self-censored, or they, you would go, what was the outcome? Because we were self-reflective. Did I write that? Yeah. Because I think I'm very lazy, but I thought, no, you just got to do some notes like, oh, we've had self-reflection. I think that you've felt well-being from that. I definitely have. We're watching ourselves, and we're
I went through a bit of a mini roller coaster of emotions after, because I thought, oh no. Then I thought, God, imagine if it went viral. How vain. And I became the face of hate. Clementine Force going, Maltese.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I thought the possibility is that it's going viral in this small way. Like when I saw the first commenter, someone I don't know, but it could be just an alias, and they asked this beautiful question, or gave an answer, which to me I need to discuss why, they said, if you think a guy is doesn't get the idea that you're just friends, they just want you to tell them. So when you first, hanging out, you tell them. And I'm thinking, God, how would that look? And are you just going to tell every guy, oh, we're just friends, and if you, I mean, how would you even, that seems like that they would feel offended. Or I think that you just have to accept that men and women, you think about, everyone that you're with, your mind just goes to these places. Like you were saying, oh, if this goes viral, how vain. But that's what I've had heaps of those where I'm like, oh, we're going to be, or I'm going to be fucking, famous. And then you're like, what does that get you? It's actually better just to go, we're going to help people. And it is, and also I'm not doing anything. I'm following 12-step groups. I'm following all these commentators that I'm being inspired by, and they've got relative fame, and they don't care. It's it's quite an enjoyable thing. And you're just working. I've worked a bit hard, and I can say, well, I'd like to be at the bigger tables. Maybe like, university, they're so intimidating. they're like, you have to speak, you know, if you don't have good first impressions where I don't even know how to speak properly. How would I speak as a Melbourne? I go to Melbourne University and they don't even speak like that. I mean, they're Australian and they grew up, you know, you have your accent, whatever it is. I sound very Aussie, whatever it is. I'm a socially awkward person. That's part of why I haven't practiced speech, I guess. And
yeah. It took me a long time to get to I found public speaking pretty easy, but it was just doing it with sincerity of like who I really was and what I really stood for. And ironically now, we just, you know, the way of the 12 steps is just a way of letting go, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like letting go, finding out what you know, trusting God, clean house, help others, then let go. Like the spiritual awakening, it's like letting go, just carrying the message and just being rocketed into the fourth dimension. And I think I don't know. I don't know what that is, but I've felt something like it. You know, that feeling when somebody dies, it's a real spiritual feeling.
Like you can't do anything about it, mixed with something else, or?
Yeah. And you feel like there's some really strange things in the air, but they're good things. They're sad things, but they're also like this person's off to another, off somewhere else. I felt that with my brother, that we fought cat and dog.
Oh, yeah.
And as he lay on his deathbed, I don't think I ever apologised for him because I did bugger all wrong to him. It might have been a bit snarky, but he lay on his deathbed and he gave he put his hand in mine and gave this smile and had the most loving look in his eyes that I'd ever seen him give me.
Wow.
In all the 50 odd years that I'd known him.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's amazing. Like, my dad dying was quite like before all of those events, you know, he took our daughter Violet for a walk in her pram. He had 9 kids and didn't watch any of our birds. And then he witnessed my daughter being born. He was waiting for them to kick him out. He's like, oh, I just waited for them to kick me out and they wouldn't. So I thought I better stick around. And so, you know, that all leading up, she was about 18 months old. And then he took her for a walk around Box Hill and he was lying in his recliner, like in a sleeping position. My sister found him. So we don't know how long he was like that. And yeah, she could see. I think, you know, I think 50% of strokes, they die instantly. That's just the statistics of what happens. And if he had had a stroke and could have survived it, he probably would have still been alive, even if it was 20 minutes or whatever. Because we feel bad. I was the only one with her. And then she's yelling out to me and we're both getting him on the floor and she gets on the phone to the paramedics and I'm just yelling, you know, Teresa, like I'm just this, you know, scared child going, you know, screaming at her while she's already traumatized, not angrily, but just like, you know, don't leave, you know, come in here and whatever. You know, 20 years ago, yeah. And that, he died a week after my brother. So there was this whole week of where Mum was starting to blame Dad, and I was like, "You're not ever speaking to Dad like that again." You know, as an adult, just going.
You're coming to smiles.
And then he just died, like almost like I'm not going to live with her torturing me or you know, spare everyone the suffering, or you know, they said his heart would have just, I guess, broke. That day he had been to the pool where my brother drowned, and he said, I was satisfied that it was an accident because my brother had epilepsy, and he'd gone there on his own, you know, against the rules. So it was my brother's kind of carelessness, I think, of the rules. We're all a bit like that.
Yeah, I never heard that. Haven't heard that story from you before.
Oh yeah.
2 in 1 week. That would have just sent shockwaves through everyone.
Yeah, Well, yeah, I just moved into Telengi and had Violet. She was a baby. My sister was over. So it was, yeah, I don't think we'd had any uncles die. They all were dying every couple of years from the last, 10 years. And then our cousin died last week. He was our favourite cousin on my mum's side. Really happy. He had pancreatic cancer. So we had to watch it on YouTube, a live YouTube of a funeral. And I'm taking screenshots of, you don't have to worry about, it's really bad form to take photos at funerals, I think, but I've always wanted to.
Yes, it's a solemn occasion. It's streamed. Yeah, God, it's I think just this past week, I think leading up to when we chatted last week, I just stopped watching anything on YouTube except for permaculture. I just thought I've got to let go. I was talking earlier about letting go, and I just anything coming from America. Oh. Evening, Kate.
Hello. And Joe. There's 6 of us. I thought I was quite thrilled. Unmute, Kate.
Oh, here.
Joe. Oh, yeah, Joe's connecting to audio.
Unmute.
Oh, yeah.
Hi. Is that Terry?
Yeah.
It's Jet Boy, Jet Girl. Going to take you around the world.
Brilliant song.
Kate. I'm going to say Joe will know it.
Could you do the?
Look at me. I don't know a damned song. I claimed to be cool enough to.
Well, ça plaint pour moi.
Yeah, I never even knew what it meant. That's what it means, is it?
Same beat. Ça plaint pour moi. Something for me. A plane for me. A jet for me.
Oh.
Plastic Bertrand.
Yeah, I like his trousers.
Yeah.
In fact, all over he looked pretty cool and just
black shine, yeah.
So I hope it records with split screen. I don't like this recording where it's just one of us and then when someone else talks it goes to them. Bloody Zoom.
Yep. Joe, you got the camera on if you want. Maybe she's still getting
maybe it might be her internet that's a bit.
Yep.
You go off speaker. You do speaker view or gallery view. You see up the top, Maureen, where it's got speaker view.
Speaker view. Oh, at the top. Oh, speaker view. Okay.
So you can either do gallery view, which means it's everybody on the screen, or speaker view.
Well, we seemed to have a split when we did it, and then the recording just didn't come out like that. It was just the same. But me and Perry's was split, but that was the only one I recorded.
Girls, me.
One's being recorded to the cloud.
Perry, you're looking well.
Not too bad. Thanks. How's yourself?
Yeah. I've loved the lockdown. I don't want to complain. I've just been to a house today to photograph in Toorak, and the guys told me that all this stuff about Dan Andrews. I'm like, woohoo! It's been an interesting time, I think. Don't you?
Was he loving him or hating him?
Well, he's the president of the Liberal Party in Black Rock.
Oh, wow. The president
of... Got both barrels.
It was fascinating, though. He's a real character. It was just so interesting. I loved it, really. And, I can listen to all that. I mean, I would have been a conspiracy theorist at the beginning of all this. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just open to listening to every side of the debate.
Yep.
And, and not hating on someone that's a Trump supporter or someone that says that they don't agree with this virus. I personally, since February, I've still been working and I still haven't met one person that's had it or one person that's been sick. I've met a couple of people that tell me that they know someone that knows someone. And, you know, and I've been working in the detox units, and so I've been exposed, even though the last couple of months we have been wearing masks, and not a person, not one person. So,
yeah, my sister's boyfriend's mother had it. She was in an aged care, one of the bad aged cares. So she was in isolation. So she was confused why she was positive, and then no symptoms. She just went through that scary 2 weeks, you know, by herself in her room, and then it was over. So, and my sister, I mean, we can edit anything out, but yeah, my sister is a real, like, if you criticize Dan Andrews, you know, and then she just goes off her block, and it's like, that's not normal, that you can't criticize a politician. Like, you have to really step back and go, this is different to any time in the past, and I'm not even being his opposite. I'm just coming up with any criticism that she's like, well, you can't do that, and you shouldn't, and you sound like a liberal, she's told me a couple of times, which is funny. I'm finding it quite interesting that she's in that bubble. She's in Thornbury, and, you know, she's having a good time and whatever. That's the people around, and, you know, their world, maybe they just don't know she's very well travelled and all that sort of things. And we have a great discussion. So she's very extroverted. She just blurts it all out, which is great. I think it's healthy in a family. And then me and her have a kind of a argument, then we're best friends, and like we all are. Yeah, like you've got how many? 5 sisters?
yeah.
And it's probably the same. And they used to all bully up to Dad. He was a pro-lifer, and I was too young to kind of engage the way they used to, but I'd sit and watch them, and they'd be crying. And he'd say all these weird statements about women, and, you know, married women on the pill. I think he thought it was the worst thing, but now you kind of go, well, this conservative thinkers believe in the family, and if you get married, then that should mean that you're planning a family or something. You know, he'd be about 90 now, I think. He died at 68, so he'd be 88. And I would have loved to talk about abortion, and now, yeah, I wouldn't be upset by anything.
No, well, when we were talking, we've been doing Zoom with my sisters, and we've all had abortions. Are we recording?
Yeah, but
anyway, well, I'll just say,
we'll all look at it and say these are the bits we don't want in, or what, you know, we're going to cut them up so that they're those short videos, you know. I'm definitely not going to just throw this up on YouTube though.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sort of fine, I think. I mean, my kids overheard me and my sisters talking about it anyway, and they're like, Finn, my son already knew because his dad had told him. And yet, interestingly, this is how life can change so much. Since I've had 2 kids, and, you know, Belle's 17, and I'm way too old to ever get pregnant again, I would never have a termination now. And my actually changed. So not that I don't see that there needs to be that it needs to be available for people, but I am very much a pro-lifer now, which is really interesting.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because during that discussion I had with Simon, he asked about what I would do now. And just thinking about it, it's just like, well, I'm a completely different person. You just do things when you're young, and young people, we need to see them as they are and the world they're in and I think we should all work together and say, let's prevent them. Why do all these girls have to go through even that decision to have an abortion? It must be, you know, and some girls they do say they're not affected by it, and they're probably not. In Australia, they put you to sleep, and in America, they're awake. Simon didn't even know that that's what happened. I don't know how many people don't know this, but in America, they're awake. And I'm like, wow, is that just to make it cheaper because it's quite, you know, anesthesia, maybe the risk, I don't know. But
I went to school with Sean Wayner, and his father, Bertram Wayner, was the first man. He was the pioneer in Australia. He had
really,
East Melbourne Clinic, and where people have been queuing up outside for years. And it was amazing. He was a ghastly man. I mean, he was a ghastly man. And he used to practice on Sean's mother. He used to deliberately get her pregnant and practice
what?
her. He wasn't even a doctor or anything. This is going right back into the day.
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
I can't.
When I think of it in that historical way, how people used to be, I can picture it that's what someone would do to their wife to practice, all in the name of medicine or whatever. Wow.
Yeah. Where are you living? That looks like a lovely wooden ceiling you've got there.
Oh, you would love, this is a mural on the wall of my bedroom.
Do you do that?
Oh, it was just there. It's a 70-year-old house. Look at these newspapers I just uncovered from the floorboards, 1949.
Oh.
They were so like, wow.
Maureen,
and I left the carpets, but the cat, I've got an old cat that pissed on my carpet, and I cursed her for a few days, could smell it, and then I just ripped it up. And I'm like, wow, they're here, these newspapers that we hear about.
Wow.
So, yeah, and reading a little bit of them. I mean, I haven't sat down and I've just, folded them and nicely, and just think, it's this beautiful. But yeah, this room is sort of in the middle. I was told it's like a little beach shack that they've added on the front bit and the back bit, and this window goes to the sunroom, so it's not to the outside. And so it's just like this room in the middle of the house, and the kitchen's just out the door.
Are you happy, Maureen?
Yeah, no, I couldn't be anywhere else. It's it's just where I got led. It was all very, a lot of, not much uncertainty, but the uncertainties are just about, Aaron, I asked him, so what are you going to do? I kind of would like you to live here, but it's okay if you live anywhere else. So it's just developing the kids will probably live here. He's got this idea that one of them, we're going to keep going to school down there, but I think both of them just like it here, and he's got a bit of money. So I said, just get a really nice, what do you call them? Comes off the back of a truck, just a room with a nicely decorated, and I think it'll hold its value. So
like a site office.
Yeah, well, I wanted to buy a site office. They're only $4,000. They're ugly looking things, but
hey, that's all right.
You've got one, do you?
Well, if this place burnt down, I'd probably get one until I'd sort of build a mud hut or
cutting
something.
Out a bit.
Me?
Yeah. Oh, now it's fine.
Oh, there's internet here. Yeah, I think if the internet line gets attacked by kookaburras or possums or something.
Oh, yeah.
What area are you in, Perry?
Pardon?
What area are you in?
Just outside of Bairnsdale.
Where's Ben? Oh, you're the same direction.
Yeah, so he's above. He's above in the centre of Gippsland and down on the coast, South Gippsland. And look at where he's living. He bought an old church.
12-foot ceilings. Got a wood heater put in.
Yeah, that's
do it
great.
this way.
Oh.
The wood heater. It's got really nice timber floors.
Oh, yeah.
And 12-foot ceilings.
Oh,
which, if you wanted to do a mezzanine, the old churchy windows, etc. Little vestry here.
Oh, vestry. I love the vestry.
Yeah, the door.
Perry.
Oh, no indoor plumbing, so it's a bit like camping.
That's all right, though. But is that the one you told me about when I met you at Maureen's that night? You said you'd found somewhere. Is this it?
I think so, because I was looking at another place.
He's been there for much longer than me.
Oh, Oh.
Small country
wow.
church.
Oh.
Oh, it's got the cross. That's great too.
Yeah. This is like the last stand of the patriarchy. Revelations 29,
Oh,
the evildoers, the deceivers went to the four corners of the earth. Hallelujah. The four corners of the earth. The deceivers, Gog and Magog. And then they surrounded the camp of the saints. And the Lord sent down a bolt of lightning and struck them all down, all the evildoers, and the peace reigned all over the lands. So I want to get monk's robes, like Franciscan monk's robes. If you know where to get a set of Franciscan monk robes.
Robes.
If you know Father Francis, Father Patrick, he was at St. Joseph's in Collingwood. He used to come to AA.
Collingwood.
Franciscan monk, really, really like sandals and friar tuck look. So that's it.
Oh, we had them as teachers. I liked them because St. Francis was the saint of the poor. So I love how the Catholic Church is about just feed the poor. Don't try and convert them. That's not what it's about. You know, you get these other groups and they're desperate to convert you, but it's like, no, it's about just feed the poor. They'll come, you know, they'll be inspired to come to church or whatever, join the group.
Yep.
Oh, that's marvellous, Perry. Have you got neighbours?
Yes, hey, there's emus just there. If you can see them. Yeah, a woman over there, Mel, she's got 3 belly leads. She's a tough country girl. I like her. There's a bloke further up who used to be a train driver.
Oh. It's still, you can see that it's swapping screens. So yeah, Aaron said he'll investigate instead of a split screen.
All right.
You're cutting out or you're frozen.
Big fig tree. Oh, I'm getting away.
Oh yeah, getting away from the internet. So yeah, I don't know if Troy, someone's waiting, admit. Troy was gonna start and see how he goes. I'm just finding it interesting, our reactions. And Kate, did you feel, I mean, you're, I guess, more, I mean, yeah, some of us, I don't want to out anyone about who goes to 12-step, but I go to 12-step and I can feel the well-being that comes from doing this. It's familiar, and so I'm realising it's coming from how they sit in meetings and you just share and everyone accepts anything. You can never criticise anyone because it's their story.
I've been doing Al-Anon actually lately.
Okay.
And she does 12. She's now doing 12 AA every day. Yeah, so I do very much understand it as well. And I love, you know, basically my work is my sharing as well. But I've been really enjoying Al-Anon, although I must say I do get a bit nervous sometimes. It's weird.
Oh, yeah.
I like everything being on Zoom though. I think that's good.
Everything about.
I like it being on Zoom, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think it's great not having to go far. Like sort of in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah. So I don't really need, I don't feel like I need the program. Like I was seeing a psychologist and so yeah, I haven't been going on the Zooms. I've kind of whined that I need the meetings. And out here, I was shocked that they're not running out here. I just kind of want that physical where I'm, you know, usually find a couple of women that you know, just trust and you're all a bit similar and yeah, you hang out a bit.
Important, yeah, for you to make new friends up there as well.
New friends?
Yeah, important for you, and you would if you went to actual meetings.
Well, I just talked to someone who, I've joined all these Gippsland Facebook groups, and one of them was for workers of the education department of Gippsland that are working to solve social problems like social conflict, and how to have better conversations. So I was like, well, yeah, I'm right into this. But she said, yeah, it's for educators. But she said, we'll cross paths, and all the schools out here are great. They all adopt this helping kids communicate with each other and solve conflict. And I guess it's about being open and, yeah, vulnerable. And, well, I think I can look it up, you know, it'd have a simple view. But yeah, they haven't started school out here. So I think that'll really push me into the community. But Foster is like the arty hippie community close by, and I'm a bit out in the, well, it's kind of like a bit wild, the communities, but then everyone comes here for the fishing. So it's this really busy town with the fishermen, but then the locals are kind of free range. But they have the background of the Christian, you know, the old Christian world that's dominated out here. And they love talking, like the neighbours, she said her grandfather, oh, he just was a philosopher, and a lot of, maybe a lot of the fishermen are like that. They just think about a lot of things. And but yeah, they're also usually religious, Christian. So I don't know if Troy, Troy was going to go to his place. He's in Ballarat, and he was at his mum's. And
did we meet Troy? Did he do it that night? No,
well, he just, it was great that he came on and said, oh, do you want to do the video tonight? I think I just texted Perry to say, let's do a couple of hours, talk about all our crap, and then we'll kind of, you know, whatever crap. Because a lot of it, yeah, a lot of them were like, we talked a lot before, then we went, okay, let's do 20 minutes, and then a lot of talk after, and all of that stuff is great. But yeah, if you go, let's think about it. The self-reflection part is something interesting, and then maybe split it into different blocks of issues or whatever we're talking about, and then just, I don't know, I'm getting sick of the wider world. They're like, oh, what are you doing? We don't like it. Oh, have you watched any of my videos? No. Or one of my sisters said, oh, I watched 30 seconds and I didn't like how he was talking about women's bodies, you know, in the abortion. He was just trying to illustrate the kind of biological logic of a baby's rights, you know, when they're just inside the body or just outside the body. And it's like, how dare you describe, you know, women who are always perfect, you know, this sort of ongoing language of getting women out into, you know, getting girls and women confident, but they're using this language of, you can do anything, you're never wrong, you know. I think that we've sort of got that message. Someone was asking about, yeah, Perry, you said, yeah, why are women sometimes, they can't take criticism, you're saying? And I thought, yeah, I've had those familiar moments. If I've been criticised, I'm like, how dare you, you know, in my mind, just like, I'm right because I'm a woman, and
yeah,
women are, and you see that language in comments, like women know, men are not, they don't say men are shit, they're just like, men don't know, men are this, men are that. And it's, yeah, you don't, either we didn't notice it or didn't seem, I think being a woman, I wasn't living in men's world, so I just didn't take notice of it or something so much until I could see, you know, with my partner, how he was struggling and how I just ground him down with words and emotion, and, you know, if he'd done wrong things, you could just punish him for it over and over. But then there are men who do really bad things, so, you know, we've got to separate. We've got people that want their own way, and they need to be reined in. And sometimes, yeah, you know, like from the men I've been getting to know, they will feel like, I don't know if more women to them are predatory as well. So they'll talk about how women prey on men for their money, or, you know, she just wanted to be taken care of and she didn't really love me, and or in the courts. But so yeah, that's where Mark was great coming in. He's been a cop and a policeman and for lots of years, wasn't it? And he talked about all of the different domestic violence situations that he was just at, where he could observe over and over different, you know, private scenarios, how couples are in their own home, what he sees, and sometimes it's really violent, and other times you can see that you know, maybe the girl is, he said he's seen a few women, you know, and yeah, he's not saying it's a predatory manipulative thing, but he said he can see how all women have to say is that he did this, and then they just grab him up. That's become, you know, they have new policies. The policies have to be put in thick and fast to get these problems sorted. So maybe in the 80s and 90s, they just put in all those measures to fix everything up. And now a lot of that stuff hasn't worked. He has seen that the police isn't very effective in a lot of ways. They don't know a whole lot. They're just told what to do in each situation, who to grab, and you separate them. And sometimes maybe they don't need to be separated, just talk to, and yeah.
Yeah, because I think that came as a package where I'll say 96% perpetrators are men, and
96.
so they'll go to a situation and just will think, oh, that's our training, you know, that's what we have to carry out, you know, unless she's standing there with a knife standing over a body, you know, with a blood everywhere. It'll just be assumed as the man. And you know, I just, that rant the other night, I just really need to get off my chest. I sound like my dad sometimes. Other times I just sound like a disgruntled geek from Canberra, you know, and just disappointed. Disappointed. I guess the comparisons I was making was, you know, I grew up in the stuffy old patriarchy where it was boring, but I didn't appreciate it because it was a measure of freedom. Although it was stifling, and it was a bit like Wake in Fright, that movie Wake in Fright, a bit of every so often. It was a measure of freedom, like the freedom to just work for a while and just quit and stuff. But yeah, just hard on myself, and I just didn't think ahead. I guess there was an album by Richard Hell and the Voidoids called The Blank Generation.
Yeah.
That seemed to sum up my my mob. Blank Generation. And that was really good to talk about that, because just blurted out. I just thought I was spraying barbs in all directions, but it's disappointing because like the entire old patriarchy, it's gone, and it's replaced by a new religion, and that's even more strict. That's my feeling.
Yeah.
That's my disappointment. That I've been seeing the symbols, you know, with washing the feet at Chop Chaz and talking about the original sin of slavery, or, you know, of settlement or colonization. And I think it's just being drilled over and over and over and everything like that. Like, it's just sleeping in. And it's a religion, religion of woke, you know, and ironically, it reminds me of like an order, like, you know, like a Jesuit order or something, the same sort of thing. But I tell you what, if whatever happens, because I got a no dog in any more fight anymore. About a week ago, I just thought, just go monk, you crazy bastard, and
dress up as.
Yeah, I'm going to dress up as a monk. Today I identify as a piece of bamboo, as you can tell. Masculine presenting transgender lesbian identifies today as a piece of bamboo. But
yeah, well, when you talk about like are there women MGTOWs? Yeah.
What's MGTOW?
Is it MGTOW? MG.
MGTOW.
MGTOW. MG, men going their own way.
I don't know that. What's that?
Oh, you're lying.
I've never heard of it, Maureen. MGTOW, never.
I thought it was Pound Town, when you get intimate with someone.
MGTOW. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Tell me about it.
Well,
I'm just a rebel.
I love hearing that it was this movement that happened, 100 years ago. Men just went, we've been thinking about it, and why do we have to be husbands and fathers? Just like women have their own shared, forced whatever. Men have, and when I heard that, of course there is all these movements. It didn't just all start in the 60s and everyone just started thinking freely. And then there's philosophy where, no one in the sociology department, well, no, not no one, a lot of the professors have studied sociology, and I kind of wonder, like, well, why don't you start the classes with talking about the nature of why we're here and all these foundational things, instead of just going straight to what is it, critical theory, where you've got your oppressor and you're oppressed, and the oppressed have to rise up, and you've got all of your minority groups, and
they don't rise up. They just pull people down to their level by taking resources off them, I think, telling them their privilege and just removing their right to speak, their right to an audience, or even be heard with a loud of jumping up and down and shouting wokery. That's the oddest part. I think just people are just on this guilt thing that just have to be equality. It's been rebranded as sort of egalitarianism or altruism. Do you think that?
Altruism. What's that one?
We're being dragged down, like all of us. So women are being thrown under the bus. If there's women are going to be thrown under the bus. Yeah. So
I wondered if it's like
MGTOW, I don't know anything about. I don't know anything about MGTOW. It's not a movement, though. It's a philosophy, but I don't know.
I can't tell.
But Jesus, I think, I don't know anything about it, but I think Jesus was a MGTOW, and the Bible was the first red pill book.
Oh.
So, I better be quiet. My
neighbours might hear you.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, like when I hear, I don't know, it was popular to say that Jesus had sex with Mary Magdalene, and immediately I thought, why would he need to do that? Why? How is that anything? So a man wanted to have sex with a woman. Well, he was representing love, and how does sex have to be in that? And these are like feminists saying that. Oh, he was a man, and she wanted to, like they just worshipped who he was as a pure, loving. She was being judged by the Pharisees as a prostitute, and I think they're saying maybe she wasn't really a prostitute. She was just labeled, or and all the other women in the Bible were important. Like the first people to see him rise was the group of women, and the last people that stayed with him before he died were women, and with the oils to anoint him. And then I guess the men, were following him and had a different roles, and society was a certain way. And it's the community, this community-based societies everywhere where women have their house domain. They still seem to work and make money, but yeah, the house and the children. And I wouldn't like to live like that, I guess, because I was just brought up free. And even my dad, the conservative Catholic, you know, all his daughters were just free to do anything. Have babies, don't have them. Get married, don't. I was the first not to get married, and we had a child, and Dad was perfectly, well, he changed a bit to just go, well, this is how the society is, and it's at least, yeah, you know, he's seeing us together. He didn't accept homosexuality.
What number were you in the line of siblings, Maureen?
7th.
Seventh out of 9th.
Yeah.
Oh, what an effort.
And do you think your mother, because people always ask us, having come from 7, Mum was told after the 5th child not to have any more. Physically, it had taken such a toll on her body. And she actually had a hemorrhage, I think, when Emma was ill, my brother, who's the youngest, so the 7th, and could have died. What do you think? We've sort of developed our own way of thinking that Dad was a sex maniac. I mean, he loved babies, and she really did love babies, but she loved babies, and then they got bigger and it became harder for her. So we think it was that whole thing about this nurturing of the baby. And I mean, I was born 10 months after, my sister was born 10 months after me, and then the 2 younger were only 10 months apart. So how did this play out on your mother physically? Like, do you think she wanted to have 9 babies, or?
Yeah, she was, well, she definitely had the loving the babies thing. So, and yeah, as the 7th, something happened. I think she had a prolapse, and the doctor said, you can't have any more children. And she said she was depressed after hearing that. And the last 2, they're like her babies, you know, they're still kind of very close with her, and we all mothered them, you know, we can't think of life without them. But yeah, and what you said about as we grew up, she just didn't know what to do with us, you know, we were on our own to, you know, bring each other up as well. Like I had, my older sisters but they're not responsible for us. Now they're starting to feel a bit bad that they weren't there when we were teenagers. They both were overseas for a lot of years, and I think I was 12 when they left, and about maybe even 17 or 18 when they came back. So yeah, I want to have those conversations about things that went on, and that it's not their fault, but if they were there, they'd probably notice and do something about it, instead of, you know, that we didn't have parents in the house. It was just a bit chaos, but fun, you know. We had all our friends come over, and we had a messy house. So we weren't poor, but it looked, I felt like we were low class because of how our house was, but Mum just had to keep it together. She wasn't going to spend money on furniture. She was trying to pay off the house, and she was annoyed at Dad for being a weak, kind of non-hitting father. You know, he didn't want to hit any of us, but we would be naughty, and he would, you know, all the anger would come up, and his hand would come out to hit us, and just a little tap, just like, bugger you all. And I don't, but Mum, she'd reach for the belt, and we'd go running. Sometimes she
can't do that now, eh?
No. I made a joke that maybe some kids need a spanking. Someone went off their brain, and I was just trying to say, yeah, I'm just joking. I haven't hit my children, but you look at some kids, and it's just like, oh, just a little spanking for that one.
It's I think this, you know, it's like too much government interference, like political correctness. It's more government, you know, oh, you can't say this anymore, or you can't say that. It's like, why not? Because it offends you. It's like fake outrage. You know, what are they doing? Convulsing? having a bloody, cerebral hemorrhage. You know what I mean?
I was thinking about my sisters, that there's these rules that they have.
It's a mortal sin,
Yeah. There are these rules. I'm thinking of going, what are these rules? Have you thought about these rules? What, I can't talk to a man about abortion? Why not? And also, what if he's a pro-choice man? That makes it okay. So suddenly, well, they haven't answered that. And a lot of pro-choice men, they don't know either. So they're just parroting what they've heard or read, and they go, oh, every abortion is perfectly it's just some cells, or it's just this or just that. And I sort of didn't think, when I said to another sister that our conversation was talking about that it's like murder, it's like eating animals. It's like, we know it's killing something, but we do it, and we need to just go accept it, not go, it's not murder because it's a bunch of cells. Just go, this is what it really is. And women actually feel that they have committed something, maybe not all of them, maybe some, I don't know. It's, 8 weeks, they're so tiny, and they actually make you wait until 12 weeks, I think. I had one in the hospital, and I was quite shocked when they said, we're going to wait until a few more weeks. And I'm like, no, what do I have to do? And then I guess it's just like another procedure, and you're meant to see it that way. So I don't like that we're meant to see it as certain things, but our experiences as women are all different, and we should be allowed to say, no, I'm affected by this, and I'm not trying to, screw up all the political stuff that the feminists want to preach. It's like, this is the actual truth about women, and that and now the women, like you said, Kate, being thrown under the bus for different things, and they actually think they're being feminists when they're just not allowing anyone to talk. So the knowledge, or the reasons, the reality isn't coming out. Maybe reality doesn't matter. They just want to control it and sort of have a utopia kind of reality.
I think
you know what?
There's lots of men that don't actually want to be fathers. And now the problem is, we're in 2020, women get to a certain age and they're desperate to have a child, and there's no father on the horizon. And so they're making these decisions themselves, that it's their right to get pregnant and have a child and fuck the father. And, I've met men that are actually, they weren't included in that discussion, and they get really upset because, hang on a sec, this is part of my choice, but I no longer have a choice about it. And so I think that's another way of looking at it as well. Sorry, Perry, you were going to say?
I just got to put the chickens to bed.
Oh yeah.
That's, I God, I forgot what I was going to say, but I like listening to it. But I'll be back in a tick.
Yeah.
I've got to remember that it's jet boy, jet girl. Sorry, I said your name. But have you heard of that, Maureen, as well? Like, because there seems to be a lot of there's a lot of kids running around out there without fathers, and I mean, that's another discussion we need to be having. The same as about transgender, and is that are we willing to accept transgender women and men, or are we willing to accept that that's part of our club of being a woman, and we allow them to go into the toilets and share, domestic violence shelters. I mean, I'm really fascinated about all of this, and I just think we've become too self-indulgent.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking about how the people you are coming to meet, and it's like, I mean, I hate to say, like, class is still sort of there, but you know, you're in this family, you know, that's just your reality, and you have all of these people that belong to this educated, you know, probably wealthy still, because I was talking about, is the new upper class just the educated, or the you know, high, and all these women that are highly you know, they have great jobs and lots of power, but they're kind of brought up in the same places. Like, we're all pretty well off in Australia, but yeah, I don't think I know any women really that. My sister would have liked to have had her own child, but no, she would have liked to have a partner with her. I mean, they're all successful, but yeah, I don't know many women that are like, no, I don't want the father around. I'm a completely independent woman. That seems to be this next level of power. And then when I think of women around me that are, I get, yeah, even below the working class, you know, a lot of generational unemployment, and the men, they father a lot of children, and they seem to want those children because at least they've got something to, you know, something of their legacy, because they've got nothing maybe. And also the drug cultures, especially ice, they seem to just have lots of children, and they're very social, and it's all about relationships, and it's, you know,
Baby mama.
Hey?
Baby
Yeah,
mama.
baby mama. Yeah, a lot like the American kind of, I don't know, is it in those gritty movies? There's not so many nice, sitcoms or television programs, but yeah. I was thinking of The Wire, actually. Yeah, they actually said they've got nothing, so they father children, and that's their legacy. But they don't know how to bring them up, and how to be. They don't realise that they're the role models, and that their children will just carry on. You're just stuck in that cycle. There's nothing you can do about it. I feel like I'm a bit stuck without self-discipline, but it seems like a bad excuse now that I was brought up without discipline, and that, you know, I look at my kids, oh, they're not going to have discipline either. I just feel like, yeah, I'm being my mum, where I'm just, you know, the men.
Way too, Maureen.
Mm.
And you know what? I picked up my daughter last night at about 11:30. She's 17, and she said, I saw such and such has I've happened to have in my work and with drug issues. And she said, and he refused drugs, Mum. And I said, what? Who was there? You know. And she was like, you know, we're teenagers, as she keeps on telling me, you know, and everyone has drugs except for me. And, you know, I was told by my last partner, she's lying. But I really have put the fear of God in her. And it's not that I meant to put the fear of God in her, but I've always discussed my work and my experiences and what I went through myself. And in turn now, I seem to have these two teenagers that, yes, are full of trauma because what they've gone through with their dad, but they're not using substances or drinking. You know, they drink, and Belle drank. She probably had a few drinks last night, but she wasn't like paralytic. I remember at that age getting so paralytic at a friend of my parents' son's house and getting so sick I had to sleep with the mother in the bed all night. Like, I was vomiting. I nearly died. I drank a bottle of Southern Comfort. And that was one of my first really bad, like, and I'm talking big bottle of Southern Comfort, and literally did nearly die. And I'm thinking, here I am picking up my daughter. She's not paralytic. She's telling me about these kids that are doing the drugs and what drugs they're taking. And I'm thinking, maybe it's okay that I want to beat myself up that I've been this non-disciplinary mother, and it's all been very unconventional, and there's mess around us. Like I said a couple of weeks ago to my daughter, I was in the bathroom. I'm sick of just living like this, because this is what I lived like as a child. Everything was sort of clean but messy, you know, stuff and collected stuff. And And, you know, and that really hit home to me that we create the environments, we create the parenting that we've learnt from our own parents.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely changed a lot too. My house is virtually, no, it's not empty, but she collected stuff, Mum, because she might need it someday. So I know that's not a reasonable reason to have shit everywhere. And I was extremely embarrassed. So I think I was hyper, I don't know, I'm sort of too aware of having, it's not a clean house, but I'm not going to have the kind of random shit that she had. But then I look at her and go, she's this wild, crazy woman, and it's great. She wouldn't, I remember her saying, I'm not going to clean up. That's, you know, I'm not going to break my back for people. They have to accept me as I am. And it was, you know, she blamed Dad. But I just think, you know, they just both didn't know what to do. And what are we going to, why would I continue to blame? But, you know, Dad's been gone 20 years, so not the memory of him fades, but just, you know, why bother even blaming? Or I guess it comes up if I'm talking about it. And I've had a lot of therapy with a very nice psychologist who loves Cole Young, but she kind of says, oh, that, you know, you're completely, there's reasons for all this, and you know, nothing wrong with you. So I kind of want to see a psychologist that can recognize that I probably have a bit more anxiety than usual, social anxiety, and I was so shy that it wasn't just because I was in a big family or for all these environmental reasons that, and I'm probably not on the spectrum of autism, but there's definitely traits of like where it's just, you know, uncontrolled social anxiety that made me cling to men. Luckily, I didn't. I wasn't into destructive. I kind of was, but you know, they were nice boys. I think, like my dad, I kind of knew to recognise who was wanting to manipulate and who was good, you know, underneath all their punk rage or whatever. That was the first boyfriend that I chose and really wanted, he was a punk with a lot of rage. And before that, I was just kind of someone's possession and his, you know, his object to, he was, very extrovert, you know, I was only 14, he was a bit younger than me, but yeah, just a very loud personality, but from a wealthy family. So that was there as well, that he felt that he was I don't know, you know, they say cashed up, they're not bogans, but yeah, cashed up Aussies. They just got lots of cash, lots of cars and houses, and aren't we great? But yeah, not much self-awareness, or they just live out there in all the sprawling suburbs we have, and all this stuff I think continues to happen. Kids living like adults when they're not ready to, and the parents aren't around to kind of monitor or, you know, regulate. I don't know if that used to happen. Maybe kids have always lied to their parents and you're going to do anything to just get out and see the boy that you've met that you're just desperate to have. Yeah.
I think it is, Maureen, and you know, my what's now that I've got to this age, what I'm really, really trying to do is let go of this notion. And that really rung home what you said about being embarrassed about the stuff. I was so ashamed and embarrassed of our home, and yet it was beautiful. It was huge, and there heaps of stuff. And my kids, I don't think, have ever been embarrassed about where we live, even though I have been. But, you know, this whole notion of what is normal anyway, like I look at you, I think we can spend our whole lives searching for what we really are or what we should be. And to me, I gravitate, you know, towards people. I like interesting people, and that's why I love my work and working in the detox units and meeting people that are striving to change and talking about stuff. And it's so much more interesting. And even though we say we might have had a harder time through our addictions or our habits and the stuff we went through, and yes, of course, there's always underlying trauma. I mean, I talk about my underlying trauma as if I'm sort of dissociated from it in a way. And I know it's created who I am, but it's only now, like, you know, today going to a place and meeting this guy, which I'd met him a couple of weeks ago, and automatically we're just having these incredible conversations, and I'm laughing and I'm thinking, you know what? Most people, and then everyone that came through the door would want to know, who are you and what are you doing, and da-da-da. You know, there's so much normality and bland and human out there today, and I'm just bored shitless by that. And that's why I love you and I love Perry, even though I've only met him once, but automatically gravitating towards something that's real. And thank God, and I look and I'm pretty sure your kids, from what I've met of them as well, you know, I think we can really try and say, and, you know, time's getting, you know, my kids have grown older now, but I'm really now realising, I look at the other families and I think, oh, but we didn't have a house and there wasn't two parents, and, you know, oh, how lucky that person is. And like what I said in that conversation the other day, you know, I'm really thinking about that as well, about how I'm disappointed that I've loved so many people, and yet it doesn't matter how many people I've loved and adored and helped get, you know, strive for something different and change something about themselves. I've never really felt that support myself. And so this comes back to that whole thing about, you know, men and women, and yet maybe and being, you know, reliant. And so letting go of what is this to be a great parent or a male or a female, or, you know, I just think we've started overthinking things too much. Jet, what do you reckon?
Yeah, well, I think there's dichotomies in everything. So that's another one. We're overthinking, but we need to think more. So both are true. Like, yeah, I agree. Yeah, we think too much, and because life's a bit random. There is things that aren't random, but there's things that just randomly happen. Things align when you're a child. Yeah, you know, two adults get together. My parents were sort of put together by my grandfather, who could see mum couldn't make good choices about men, so he found my father for her, sort of not arranged, but just sort of presented him. Yeah, like she's been bringing men that are just, and she still talks about these other men that she would like to catch up with. And I said, you know, this guy sounds like he would have beat us. Oh no, beautiful, bloody tall and Greek and strong and this and that. He probably would have beat us, you know. Dad was good. And now she says, oh yeah, I loved your father. We had a great relationship. And yeah, I guess you need the therapy to go, oh God, I had to listen to them screaming at each other for years and years, and now it doesn't seem to matter because it's just this random reality that we had to live. I think I was telling someone, it was only about 7 years that it seems a long time, but, you know, I'm a teenager, I'd go out, you escape from it, maybe between about 10 and 13, there's nowhere to go and no friends, and then I just, yeah. Dandenong was a great place to just go and meet up with people. I'd go out to Endeavour Hills where there'd be, you know, half the school, half of my class from St. John's in Dandenong, 300 kids in one year level, and about half of them were in Endeavour Hills. So you just walk around this really great place that's really mixed. That's what they tried to do with the class thing, like mix people that are all different demographics and put them in school together, and all the families and migrants and Aussies. It just seems to be okay. Like there is a lot of drugs, you know, that's probably another thing they need to address. But yeah, you're just walking around and you're like, oh, such and such lives there, and there's some of them are having lots of problems, and one guy's pissed, and another group of kids would help him. They took this guy home, and he'd sober up so that he wouldn't get in trouble from his parents, and yeah. I think, then he crashed his mum's car. We're like, what are you doing, boy? And oh, I don't care. He's like a 16-year-old kid. Just like, life's over.
Life's over.
You got your whole life ahead. My family's arrived from the city.
Jet boy, where did you grow up? Croydon.
Croydon.
I thought I remembered something. No, not Croydon or Vermont.
You're born. Where did I grow up? I've never grown up, but I just went to Melbourne in 1987.
In Canberra.
Yeah, via Armidale and Glen Innes and Waitalabar Community and Canberra, then.
Oh, after Waitalabar.
Yeah, then Sydney before that, and Pacific Islands before that.
That's right.
6 years, Pacific Islands. I think you're talking before, Kate, about overthinking things in relationships.
Yeah.
I think there's been thinking, but I think men have thought of all the wrong things. I think they're just go on automatic. So I see a lot of men around me, just brains are on automatic. I could even see it myself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't like change.
No.
They probably try and recreate the happiest years of their life. Like 10 years in the same government job and, nothing. They have exactly the same conversations. And now this year, like it just seems like it's just everything's turned upside down and we've gone to another planet or something. It's like quarantining. And no one's... It's like this thing of just a coup or something. I don't know. It hasn't affected me out here, but it's been sort of busy, and I've just had to like shed stuff. And then I thought, I think we have all these perceived expectations, and men don't really know themselves. They're not really. They're just donkeys, really, just holding utes. A lot of them, of all, surgeons just going along on automatic, and then comes along romance, and that really lifts up your heart. And we're not really taught what it is. In fact, we're not taught where much is at all. Blokes aren't. It's this notion of women is like this, the lizard brain, the reproductive instinct, and that's just overwhelming. You can just lie and just pursue it, and that's all people think of. The reproductive instinct. I sort of gauge it with people that are macho and have that high reproductive instinct. And I was observing my chickens. I thought, be like the chicken, observe the chicken. And the three hens, I was thinking of telling you that story, the three hens, they barely, Alina did, she was a bit of a veteran. She went next door, but the other two chickens would just hang around the house all day. Once Elvis the rooster came along, give him a hug of burning love. He was like their bodyguard. He'd stand back when there was food. He'd alert for low-flying birds or puck, puck, puck. He'd stand there like this bodyguard. He'd be towering above them. I could look up the window and they'd be right up the paddock. And he was their protector and their food finder and guide, and just occasionally you'd just dump their bones, or he would mate.
So not all the time. I always felt that the roosters
4
were
times
just
a day, 5 times.
Oh.
I don't know. It was the
yeah,
king,
every day. Yeah, every day. But yeah,
love, man. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. I mean, he just basically raped them. Like, it was just, he raped the Frizzles next door too, and the fella came over going, "Damn." Yeah, upset.
Oh,
And that's the patriarchy, isn't it? That's a natural order. And the weird social engineering now is just like, let's empower people by shifting large sums of resources from one mob to another mob and empower them by resource of money. Because every time I've been listening to the news, I turn it off now, but anytime there, the underlying thing is like more funding. Shame on the patriarchy. And the patriarchy is just chopped off at the knees to where now more restrictions on your speech. And
yeah, they say they're not short of money for for these things they're trying to do. Like, I think, well, yeah, I don't want to talk about America, but I think that's where I heard it, that these services they want, they're getting lots of money, but something's not working. Yeah. So like, yeah, there are too many simple ideas. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's just another problem. Oh no! So you get more of it. Set up another little branch or another little research thing or an action group or another little place extended off that because, oh no, this is happening, so we have to have that more. So the government's just going to get bigger. And to cut a short story long, to me it resembles the fall of ancient Rome and the fall of many civilizations. Welfare, like they were importing wheat from Egypt and other places. It's like to feed 40,000 people a day. Bread and circuses, I shall give them bread and circuses. So things got a bit more, morals got a bit more loose, and started got more gory and at the Colosseum. And breakdown of the police. Oh, not really the police, but the army started to hire mercenaries because as people started to leave, the taxes went up, population went up, then it went down. It got up to 1 million, I don't think that was rival until Tokyo in the 1600s. And then it just started to collapse, like the dollar collapsed, welfare state got big, it just got more chaotic and started declining gradually. A bit like the British Empire, it reached its peak, then it just started to decline. Since about, I don't know, you can argue whatever date that the West has started to decline, maybe after World War I. It's just exhausted.
Yeah, you're always interested in history like that.
I look at a historical sense of patterns that no matter what the politics are, it's all the same. One mob warring, trying to get control, lying, got their own agendas, got noble people, noble intent on both sides. But under the bus again, everyone.
I feel like
whoever's the reactionary will get thrown under the bus.
Today I was arguing, I mean, the last 2 days I've just been frantically commenting and, out of celebration almost and really engaging in all these different conflicts that people are having about the election and, what was this? Yeah, this guy introduced me to Jordan Peterson, who led me, that was sort of the beginning of my shift, and he's really upset at me because I said something like, Trump seems to represent the white male that doesn't really even exist anymore. He's full of money and power and, I own women and like it's an old fashioned man, but the other men aren't really like that anymore. I don't say the patriarchy, all white men have power over women, but he represents this sort of dying order or whatever. And this guy was like, you're just, we had we came back to, I can see that you just feel like labeling people and that I sounded like the leftist. I said, I'm a lefty, but I understand the difference. Like you say, a leftist is like a they're always on fighting. Yeah, always fighting. And it's
I'm with you, sister.
rhetoric. Yeah, like I love that first thing you see of Jordan Peterson where he's talking to one group of students. That's sort of how he got famous. And then these other group came over to him, you know, what do you think of Nazis being at your talk? And he just goes, well, I don't like Nazis, you know. And then he just goes, you're so full of rhetoric, after they were just hammering it out at him. He's just like, you're so full of rhetoric, we can't even talk because it's just, and that was was it probably less than 4 years ago, but that was the beginning of his kind of idea of, I'm sure there were other people at the time, you know, where people were thinking that way. I'm sure they were doing it in the 80s and 90s. I just wasn't, you know, I hung around uni students, but I just used to party and, you know, chase all the boys. But because I wasn't educating myself, you know, I wasn't going to be in that world until I was able to, yeah, engage. So it seems to be happening now. Maybe more people now are seeking education off the internet, and now the actual educated ones, they're so nasty about people that aren't educated. It just seems like a new kind of, you know, segregation where you're allowed to vilify people, like just, you know, and because they've got white skin or whatever, that's okay. Because they're a man, you're allowed to call them any name, and if they're not formally educated, if they don't know all the theories that they're meant to know, and the, you know, like it's very shocking to hear, yeah, like, you know, trans women are now natural women. Like that's a very shocking thing to hear. And it's taken me a while to talk to people who say, well, scientifically, you know, you can have a variation of, I don't know, there's 4 levels: hormones, what's the other one, DNA, secondary sex characteristics, and I think the other one's the brain or something. And they're on it. They're like, no, now we've discovered, you know, there's no binary, and so everyone's just mixed in between. And if you say anything against it, even though you've got no idea, you've never come across it, you know, you're a horrible person, a transphobe, and that's your one label. And it's just it should be on it, like obvious to them. It's really, yeah, that's what's fascinating. Like, why isn't that obvious that is really, you know, they're being not hypocrites, you know, that it's bigoting. It's being a bigot, isn't it? You're putting down one group, and that's sort of a general, if you're, you know, racist, sexist, classist, I think that it's closer to being a classist, but you're in this class where you've had a formal education and you've got no traumas, because I know I couldn't study if my traumas and if my emotional state isn't right. You cannot sit down and write essays, and that's kind of all university is, or, you know, mathematics or whatever. And you're going to suffer trauma. I mean, you can suffer traumas at any class level. This is what they try and teach you. I feel like, you know, the middle class and the upper middle class, you're most likely to at least pretend that you're very balanced and that you have to go to university, and then you're in that world. I think they call it social capital. There's some sociologists, there's financial capital that we all used to think was the upper class, and now there's social capital is where you know people in your social class, and you can get ahead by having people that are in the know. Like Kate, you would probably be considered, you know, in this kind of theory that you have access to social capital just by the people that surround, you know, even just your father, all those people, and like, you know, that you're like so you go and photograph houses. Is that with your sister?
No.
Or you do photography? You do another kind of.
I've got a whole other thing I do, which is the mid-century, which is mid-century houses, which we've funded ourselves, which I've met another couple, Jewish. Not that that matters, but they approached me, they filmed me and my family, my sisters, at one of the houses Dad did, and then they approached me and they said, oh, we think you'd be really good, do you want to join the project? The funny thing is that, I come from both. So my dad, very, very poor North Melbourne boy. His parents were actually the secretaries of they started the tenants union. So they would, his dad was the secretary of the tenants union. They really, scrimped and, there was very poor working class. Dad won a scholarship. He was the first person in his family to ever get educated. So he won scholarships to University High and then to Melbourne University. And he was going to be a doctor. He got in to do medicine, and then the war happened and he lied about his age and ended out in the Navy and was on the first boat into Hiroshima after the bomb was dropped. And we never knew. And then one day he was walking past it was Hiroshima Day, and he was walking past the classroom and the headmistress called him in and asked him, to start speaking, and he just burst into tears. And it was like, oh my God. And then we'd seen these box brownie photos. But then Mum came from a really wealthy family, but also political. Her grandfather was mayor of Collingwood, and he was instrumental. If you've ever seen the Collingwood Town Hall, his name is actually engraved into the cornerstone, the foundation stone of the Collingwood Town Hall, and which is a really interesting thing. And Archibald Aitken, and I've been there and I've photographed that. He was mayor in 1857, and then they owned one of the first breweries in Victoria, and he invented Victoria Bitter. So those CUB buildings there along Alexandra Parade, the huge, what was the CUB brewery, that was his brewery, and then CUB took it over. But he lost all his money, so the story goes, or he died, the sons lost the money, or maybe his grandfather, I don't know. His mum died so young, so we couldn't find out what we did, except for now on the VB slabs of beer, they're actually got on the boxes Thomas Aitken, which was her grandfather. And there's a little bit of history I've found. But so her mum, so they lost everything in a card game. He apparently gambled and drunk it away, or there's two sons that it was left to. And so Mum had, Mum's mum was one of the first divorcees in Victoria or in Australia. And she was Mum's dad. So she already had two sons or three sons, and then she married Mum's dad and then had Mum. So Mum was basically sort of like an only child, but had these half brothers. And then, so I've got both sides. That's why I think I'm really political, but it's why I can move in both worlds. And here I am sitting in public housing. I went through domestic violence. I went through all that stuff. And even though I've got sisters that, one of my sisters, owns a $3.5 million bloody house in Port Melbourne. My other sister Polly just bought the house in Byron Bay that's worth probably $3 million fucking dollars. I can sometimes bring them back to, normality, and not that they've ever said, I will help you or anything. But so now going around and photographing these buildings and meeting these people, like the house I was in today, sold for $15 million. And I walked in there and photographing, and one of the people that came said, "Oh, are you Eva?" Who's the daughter of the family that just died. The mother died 2 years ago. It's in Toorak. It's an incredible mid-century house designed by quite a well-known architect. And this guy said, "Oh, are you Eva?" And the auctioneer who I'd been there, who let me go in and photograph it, last week when I went there, he's like, "Oh, you can come in, but you can sort of photograph," but I couldn't really do what I wanted to do because there was all this, millions of dollars worth of stuff and jewels and bags and everything around. They let me in. This guy said, "Oh, are you Eva?" And then the auctioneer said, no, but I bet she wants to be. And he runs Melbourne. The guy that had come in to pick these pot plants, he's one of the big heads running bloody Melbourne University. And sometimes I just, when they say, where do you live? And I'm like, oh, Princess Hill. They automatically think that I must own, but they do ask me usually, do you own your own house? And I say, no, I rent and I live in a flat. And then I say, and I'm really political, and I actually ran for Save Public Housing, which I did do. I don't tell them I live in public housing because it's not their business, and it has got that stigma still attached. And this is, if I didn't have this roof over my head, I wouldn't have built a career and I wouldn't have raised my 2 kids. So that's why now my world and my life is about giving back, you know, and unfortunately, like, I did just spend 6 years, 4 of those years, you know, supporting someone else. And that was like, I didn't give a shit that they didn't have money. I didn't want them to have money. I wanted them to build a life. And like, I envisioned them as this genius, which unfortunately, it turns out I don't think they were, or they had ulterior motives. But so I think the whole men and women thing, you know, and that's why I say I'll probably die heartbroken, because it's not about money to me or anything. And I've now seen what people own, and they're no happier than me. They're, you know, there's nothing that they've got that I really want except for a beautiful house. Because I would love a beautiful house, but I type in $60,000 Victoria. One day I'll have $60,000 and buy myself a house. It might be 4 hours out of Melbourne, but, you know, I just want simple things in life, you know, and I've got a roof, and that's why I think we've got to be really, anyway, that's my rave. But yeah, so it was interesting going into that house, and it's interesting, you know, that you get to see, you know, what I understand fully what this world's about, and it's very inequitable, very unfair, and pretty mean, because most of the people I know that do have money are the least generous people I could possibly ever. I just don't want to know them anymore. I don't want to know those sort of people. I find it does not sit well in my stomach. I don't want to sit around and talk about, and then to think that I'm this sort of, you know, I'm almost like the entertainment, because I've got a belief, and I've got these people that I love. I see my mate home that was homeless. I got him housed at the beginning of COVID. Like, I like doing stuff and creating stuff and making things happen, and that's what we do in life, and that's been my whole goal. What can we do for other people?
Yeah, because I get stuck on this class idea, I think, because it was sort of invisible to me. I mean, I was probably in a privileged to some extent. I mean, we're all on different levels or whatever, but then when I started studying, then I realised, wow, everyone who's, and I did the strangest was this journalism unit where all these people were doing journalism because their parents, one guy said his father worked for the Age and that's why he was doing it. Like, that was their reasoning for being there. They didn't even really know. And then there's, of course, students that are there because, for what, you know, for other reasons, normal kids. So there's lots of normal people, but then there's, I just felt like the 90s kids that went straight to uni and then straight into a career, they're the most clueless to the real world in a way. And I always felt bad that I didn't know much, and I am disadvantaged with all those years that these people have of education and then career and then more education and the confidence that just builds continuously. And a lot of them aren't aware that there's all these other people that just don't have that. And that's the reason why they might be, I don't know, a Trump supporter because he appealed to the working class, or, you know, a nationalist because they're fearful of losing, you know, what feels like yeah, the order that they need, because you can't control much when you don't have much. And even they can be, this girl that blocked me, I should have dealt with her better. I grew up with her in school, and I was really my self-esteem would just drop when I was near her, because growing up I was the pretty one. The boys would like me, but then she would kind of sneak in around the back, and they were close, and she could talk about art and had the confidence, and was at uni studying an arts degree in journalism, and so over all those years of resenting each other, then it just boiled over. She brings out on Facebook that bloody book, about every white person's racist. What's that called? White fragility. And just parroted kind of this idea that we're all white, and we should only be appealing to what we can do to help, our people of color, and that we have to admit our privilege, and that rhetoric, and then me and Joe are just discussing, and then she just comes on, oh, you're just pontificating, you need to just stop, and just stop. She just had this language like, just stop. And so a few times she messaged me personally, in a personal message, and I said, I'm not usually like this, I was just so bitchy, in the private comment, but just this, I just said, you are a fucking bitch, on Facebook. I just don't care anymore. You are the privileged one. You studied straight out of high school. Your father was a professor. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have this social capital. You can be someone with all kinds of problems and not utilize it, but she did. She got 100% year 12 for English. All these things mattered to her. Her career is everything. It's her reputation that's everything. So it was just an immediate block. But she had this last comment that was like, oh, I'm well aware that my father, and then I couldn't read the rest of it because she blocked me before I could see it. And I thought would like to know, because I don't think I'm completely right. I was too angry, and I was insecure, and she's allowed to have an education and she didn't steal our boyfriends like I sort of thought. There was actually a thing where I blamed her. I mean, it's just horrible. I don't want to say, but I slept with a guy. He'd broken up with someone for a week, and in that week we had a weekend together, and then I blamed this girl because she deserves it. And I was probably 16, and then she brings it up 20 years later, and I had no recollection, but I had said, I didn't sleep with him, it must have been blah blah. And I'm just thinking, God, what an arsehole for me to do that. But I was talking to her about the 12 steps. That step 4 is you write out all your bad things you did. And she goes, oh yeah, I was meaning to bring up this thing that you did to me. So later I'm like, yeah, it's not about her telling me. Yeah, I can see Perry going, no, that's not how it works. People don't come at you. Yeah, you've got to make amends to me for this. And I was like, oh, it's a horrible thing, but I don't remember. I probably did do
that. That's brilliant though. But you're right. I mean, it's got to be absolutely pathetic. I mean, like all my family, we've been doing Zoom on a Sunday. Most of us have dropped out now. But, my brother-in-law hates Jordan Peterson so
right.
much. He has done full on, and that's his job. He's a film director. He knows how to do the research. He has sent me documents about how Jordan Peterson is, right wing, you name it. And like, I haven't even read through those documents because it's like, and he's like, he gets he quotes from something, and then he, you know, he references the article quoting from, and he just won't listen. Now, I met Jordan Peterson. Okay, it might have only been for a couple of minutes, but I saw him live speaking twice, and certainly I saw him live. That's the most I've probably seen of him. And then that personal bit after the second time we saw him, where it was just him and, you know, 30 people. And there was something about him. He really touched my heart. And I'm like, okay, he might have some bad things that he said, or he might be like with Trump, you know. My redeeming feature about Trump is he shook the fucking North Korean guy or South Korean guy or whatever's hand. You know, that had never happened before. I mean, we've got so sort of narrow-minded about we're on one side of the fence or the other that we stop listening. And so my whole thing about COVID is, if I bring it back to COVID and the family rooms, they just have not wanted to hear any other opinion, you know. And like, so my brother-in-law with the Jordan Peterson, he sort of, like, you know, sort of, it's like he mocks me or scoffs. I've got a different opinion. And these are the people that, say that they're educated. And
I was going to say, does he bring his education into it to make himself right?
Well, that's exactly it. They don't see, they're so well educated, that the left-wing socialist outlook, you know, of how we should be looking after everybody is the right way. And, you know, I know the same as you why people have voted Trump, and I know why that appeals to people. You know, I must say, a lot of the conspiracy theorists that I've been watching on Facebook, I had to stop listening to, because some of the stuff is just way out there, and I don't believe it's really productive. It's counterproductive to, you know, any sort of fairer, better world. But I'm just really interested that all those people, they're so, like, I think I've defriended, I went off Facebook altogether, and I'm only now doing it because of the architecture of my nutrition pages and the Save Public Housing page. I defriended probably about 20 people that I'll never, ever want to look at again. I won't be in the same room as them, because I now know how they really feel about loving the fact that the police are breaking up demonstrations, wanting to hug Daniel Andrews, you know, like, oh, we did the right thing. And you know what? They're all middle class. They've all got bloody, excuse my swearing, but they're all comfortable. They've all got houses. They don't have to worry probably about the next dollar. They can feed themselves, and they've got a garden to tend. They've got a garden. Half of us don't have a garden to tend, and so we are angry and pissed off, because it's like, it's not fair. Why should have we all been shut out of the basic necessities in Australia, the lucky country of having a roof over our head? And it's become the unattainable dream.
I did an essay on those mixed communities, and I realised, like Dandenong and Dever Hills was successful, but then they've tried it since then, and it's been horrible. Like places like probably like Maui, and places where the middle class move out, and then it's just like a concentration of people that don't know what to do, and their education, the schools aren't good. Like we do have meant to have a good public system, but if you have low income coming into the council, I think you get less funding for your school, or it just turns out where you just don't get the good teachers, or they don't even have faith in the kids. They just look at the kids, they're going to be, they don't even try to help these kids that are having, you know, the parents are in trauma, and they're probably all working so much that the kids are left alone, and then they're exposed to the you know, the people that are doing criminal, not just taking drugs, but, you know, all the violence and stuff that goes with illegal drug activity, normal kids that probably don't want to be exposed to it are just there, and then it just drags them in. And then you got that upper cut off crust of people that think that they're in the same boat as everyone else. And I was lucky. I own my own home because of my mother's choices as a 50s migrant who she was all about paying off her home, and then all of us kids, she wanted us to own homes. So that's that kind of European mentality to own something, and she just forced it on me. I wanted to be free, but I had a child, so she kind of even knew that you've got a baby, you're not going to be traveling the world like the others. So I want to give you money to buy a house, and it wasn't that much that back then, 20,000 for a 20% deposit that the bank needed, because I wasn't working either. I mean, I had, my daughter's father, he went on the title, and then I got his name off. I don't really know if it's fair, but I feel like he was a bit disengaged, and I don't think he put much money into it. I was actually working at that point, so he didn't really get anything out of it when we were about to sell, and then I bought the house in London, and then I was able to buy this house out here. That he felt that like he'd been left out, and maybe because it's just miscommunication with our relationship. We weren't meant to be together. It was sort of a convenience. He was a nice guy. I don't know. Part of it is that I had an abortion, and then he didn't force me to, but he strongly, or even just easily, kind of told me that's what I should do. We didn't know each other, and it didn't look like we were going to be a good match. But then I just got pregnant again, and just went, I want to just have a baby. It's kind of like I didn't have anything better to do, but I was also a bit sad that I'd had to have an abortion. So as much as it was so strong that abortion was nothing to be ashamed of at all, it's nothing. But it's just there in your mind for all those complex reasons, whether it's my dad's voice or the society, or and so I just didn't feel like he. And then she was 18 months. We moved out there, and within 4 months I said, you've got to go back to the city, you're a musician. He was from an upper class kind of world, and his brain was stuck there. His father invented the Jiffy Cam and worked on all these Hollywood movies as a pilot, and so my daughter's father just felt that he had to be successful in that way. And I was very confused by why is he thinks he's going to be a rock star. I was very confused. Like, he was envisioning himself as a rock star, as a famous musician. And that Melbourne has a good music, and you just play in your band, and it's fun and creative. But I can't think of many people that expect to be famous. So.
Did your daughter have anything to do with him?
Yeah.
And the grandparents?
She had a great upbringing because she had all these other support groups around her, and one of them was her father and his new wife, who lived in the city, and his new wife was very accomplished, but just as a creative person. She had very traditional Italian parents, but she's just a creative, I don't know, she's just there. Maybe because she's a Leo, I sort of thought, astrology, but she's a typical Leo, and they found each other and fit that way because he still pursues, that dream. And his father kind of almost rejects him and his brother. His brother's the loveliest person, just he can't stand to watch anyone be treated badly. And once when their father had a dinner party, you would know, with high class people, what do they call it? High society. The brother came in and pulled the tablecloth and pulled all of their food and drinks off the table. So I think their dad just was like, that's it, you never humiliate. But yeah, we all turn out differently because we're all different. Because we're human, it's a complex world, and mixture of biology and random events and our brains that are always going, and self-aware, not like the chickens who just do their thing. Yeah, maybe. So it's been 2 hours. The other 3, I was thinking there's 3 women now and 3 men. So I think this was good. How are you going, Perry? You want to?
Yeah, I'm going good. It's good to hear you talk, because I sort of think to myself, yeah, you're right. I go in the historical sense and all the finer little details. They just seem to be sailing by. There just seems to be so much going on. I guess I've just I came out here and it's been a really good sort of emotional detox. I felt that a detox from Melbourne and from that environment that I was in, that blokey, the cucks, the blue pill cucks, nuffs. And
where you worked?
Yeah.
Where you left?
Yeah. And it just seemed like it was just the time was right. I spent a few months there just running down the sick leave in that job. So let's had this really peaceful winter in Eaglemont, and I acted in 7. I was in 7 student films. And just lately, I've just and I miss it. Just lately, I had a friend Kevin ring up who worked for Post, and he's also in GA. And he rang up yesterday and he said, "Oh, Perry, these Catholic families are fucked." I said, "How many kids?" He said, 9. He said, "My mother's died, and and it's just been happening the past few weeks. I just had a drink, just a drink, and but then I was just saw on the TV, and it was a horse racing, and I thought I had another drink, and then I put a bet on, and another bet. Then I'd spend all my savings. Then I went out the bungalow, and he went out the bungalow in the back to borrow money off the woman there." And I said, "Kevin," and he said, it sounds like I'm talking to Father Perry in confession."
Did he
and I
come
said,
to your
"Jesus,
church?
Mary and Joseph Perry, Jesus, Mary and Joseph Kevin, you've been sinning. I'm just going to come around on my bicycle to the village and thrash you, boy." It would just been in his head for so long, when you get into that zone of, I'm not a gambler, but in that obsessive zone. And I brought him out of it briefly, and I just said, he said, because I've suggested before, go back to GA or AA, and he, oh no, I hate them, mate. And I think this time, he's going to go back, and he goes for a while, stops. And it made me think of just about, I'm glad I'm out of that cycle where you're in and out, or just trying to control your gambling while you're gambling. And I got to help him a bit. Then I started to have this fantasy, or not a fantasy, but this idea of being a mad monk around here, because I really just want to have that artistic expression, or the village priest on a bicycle.
I feel like Gippsland is allowing for that kind of difference. I'm loving my property, and I know that there's a certain level of freedom that I'm coming to from the suburbs where it's stifling and everyone just gossips or they just avoid each other. But it seems like there's weirdos, but they're just people. We're all different, but they're expressing. There's one guy up the road, he has just all these bits of wood and stuff in his front yard, but out the front he's carved this beautiful big tree with all these dogs on it, and he's got all these creative projects. And you drive past, just before you get into Welshpool, he's got this rambling property. I love the rambling properties with all the junk, all the crap. It's just like, what are you going to do with that? And they probably don't know that there's people driving past judging them like that, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's their property, and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's a lot freer.
Yeah.
And yeah, to do your own thing, as well as I look at country people, how they get skills pretty young.
Yeah.
Experience with animals and building things and machines and maintaining and horse wrangling.
And it's a bit tough. Like, yeah, I was such a prissy thing. I'm like, oh, it smells. I was like, oh, I don't know about this smell. Like at night, there's just kind of a bit of a cow shit smell. And now that's nothing. Like that's just the changing temperatures and then there's wind, and then there's big ants, and then there's the threat of snakes. So I'm just mowing the lawns a lot, and then it's piling on top of each other. Then I've got this random guy show up yelling about his girlfriend. He's going to punch out my boyfriend, and I'm thinking, God, I'm being threatened here. But he, and then it made me think, okay, now we're going to secure our border around our property and get a gate, and we've got some cameras, and my man loves his technology, and it's going to be great for him. He can protect his family in the way that he knows that's his talents, and that's through technology, not fighting. He's good with words, but he doesn't like the aggression. But yeah, I can see how the man's domain, they use aggression or even fighting because that's all other men know. So if I've got this random guy, if he ever comes back, well, the neighbours said, call us. They gave me their number, and I'm a bit of a hermit. So that day that he was there, then I hung out with the neighbours, and they're good friends, and now I've got, and they heard him screaming at me, and then he drove off in a flurry. Protecting his woman's name. Your boyfriend threatened my girlfriend. She's in hospital. She's broken her back. And I'm thinking, I know these kind of people, but now I'm bearing the brunt here, and it's a bit shit.
The wrong house.
Yeah.
Yeah, or an act and just casing the joint.
Yeah, well, who knows what the possibilities are now. Like, I don't have a screen door, and the front door is an old, beautiful old glass door. So I can imagine them smashing that. If, it's just not one of those areas though, where there's just rampant, psychosis from drugs, where I guess it's free enough that they can hide from it, but then it'll come up in the public, and I don't know, maybe they used to be too forceful, but maybe sometimes getting locked up is the best thing that happens to addicts, or it's the worst. They get introduced to other crime and other drugs, and but it's a wild card out here of what's going to happen. I like it. Now I have to think about or just living, because anyone could die at any time. We could all have a car accident, or have a heart attack if we.
I think it's good. I found it hard for the first few months here, and I was smoking a lot of cigarettes, and I was stressed. I was really hard on myself, and had the old banyan tree full of chattering monkeys going. And I've just felt this sense of relief the past couple of months, and it's just getting better, that if I hang on to the, the 12-step thing of the best is yet to come, trudging the happy road of destiny, I won't be so nihilistic and black-pilled as I think a lot about the past, the future, now and the future, and just seeing these patterns and seeing this before, and just, God, if you just try not project, but, like they say, trust in God, but tie up your camel. And just thinking, God, if it's really going to happen that the government has just gone out, or somebody's just gone out just to destroy the capitalist thing, make everybody dependent on the government, more surveillance, more rights taken away to come into your home, that omnibus law, my goodness. And thinking, this is actually happening on, but it's shut down and people getting an incitement. I'm thinking, like talking to Mark, it's just beyond like his old school, that time of negotiation, a lot more negotiation than now, where it's just hiring compliance officers and fine, clamp, spray. Retarded. East Germany, it's bearing the hallmarks of East Germany. And this nut job the other day said, oh, it's fascist. And I said, fascism is ultra-nationalism. It's weird, but it's not, this is not ultra-national. This is anti-nationalism. This is anti-God, anti-country, anti-family, anti a lot of stuff. Under the barrel of the mythical patriarchy, it's sort of more or less, if you don't join that region of woke, I suppose, where you just think, yeah, Dan, you're doing a great job. It's a great job. And yeah, that I'll take the knee for BLM, like the police took the knee for BLM in Ballarat. And the BLM website just says dismantling the patriarchy, the heteronormative, oppressive, and all this fake outrage, and they do not actually care. Like when you get down to it, people don't have much empathy for each other. But you've got all these things like Extinction Rebellion saying, well, it wasn't really about the climate. It's about dismantling the patriarchy, heteronormative, capitalistic, oppressive society. But they don't care. It was never about climate, never about BLM.
But if they do that first level, then all that other stuff will fall into place, is what they think. If they just do that ends, do anything you can to reach those ends where you've got rid of the patriarchy and installed communist, socialist, whatever. I've been told that they don't know what they actually want. But I mean, I feel like if the both sides were together, we'd get a better picture. So I don't have a picture because I only hear one side, then I hear the other side, and I have to kind of go back and forth. But then there's those speakers like Dave Rubin, Jordan Peterson, or who all seem to identify as conservative. I think Joe Rogan I like, even though he's a comedian and whatever, he brings on all those people, and he's sort of a lefty. He just speaks just like, let's just talk about stuff and bring out the knowledge and not judge anyone but I guess even Joe Rogan, he's leaving California, going to Austin but I don't live out there, so maybe it is that terrible in LA that he just can't deal with it.
Probably is. That whole thing about the, Extinction Rebellion. I've got a friend that was like, every day, every week, for the cause. And she's very, very anti, like she'll go as far as she's going into the middle of nowhere. If they're going to force us to have a vaccination, that's all she's focused on, how she's going to get out of here and where she's going to go. and she's now Unrealised Extinction Rebellion. A girl I used to work with who's high up in Extinction Rebellion in Darebin, she started posting about Dan for PM, and I said, you have to be joking. From you of all people. And she kept on deleting my comments. And then finally I just wrote to her, you of all people, I'm really shocked you're censoring comments, and this is what you believe. And then she wrote to me privately saying, I've been on the front line, and I think we have to celebrate the good and and I'm like, yeah, and how many people do you know that have actually had COVID? But that whole thing about these are all the people that are fighting these causes. I mean, anyone that doesn't know Greta Thunberg or Thunberg or whatever is a plant and, has been used beyond, I mean, Al Gore, all those guys, they've all made billions of dollars. I won't swear. But these are all people that are saying they're for all these things, and yet they're not willing to give up anything of their own lives to create a better world for anyone else. It is lip service, the same as Dan Andrews is lip service. I mean, he doesn't give a shit about my health. He doesn't care. The most he cares about my health is that my work is government funded. And I'm out there telling a room full of people that are addicted to something for the trauma or for a reason that whatever reason they've been using. And guess what they're given? Something else to get off what they've been on. So it's just swapping addictions. Get off this and then go on this. And, I just see the whole world now as a complete contradiction, and yeah, it's a contradiction, and people don't want to give up anything. They're all very well for saying, yeah, I believe in this. And, Extinction Rebellion is now funded. They get donations, the one in England. They're not they're not this, like great, activist group that's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, when they were around, they seem to be gone, but they're probably in the background for now until they get there.
I think Greenpeace, that guy, the blue shepherd, what's that shepherd? Black shepherd.
Sea shepherd.
That guy is apparently a billionaire.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I used to love, I remember, that was when I was a real lefty, the whales, that was my cause, Sea Shepherd. And they had their own TV show about it. And I was just, there was before, I mean, I talk about uni and education. I think I just assumed that I don't know, you kind of assume too much, and I just let it, I let the emotion come in, and whatever cause is there, you just kind of get fixed to it. I just wonder how many people are like me in these causes where they're not that they're not educated, because there's just so many that are all from the unis and stuff, but then there's a crowd around them. And when I met you at that Jordan Peterson event, I went to the counter protests. I was so glad I went to this, because they're the group that I fear the most, so I forced myself to go. And they had Ros Ward, who did Safe Schools. She's just a loose cannon, and and they're a few other speakers. One weird guy who his father is very accomplished, like he studied primates and all this stuff, but this guy, the son, didn't do any, I don't think ever went to uni, but somehow he was one of the speakers. And it's not that he could have been a very intelligent person and was involved in a lot of things. His call to fame was that he came up with a group called Yelling at Racist Dogs. Have you heard of this group? Yard. Oh, they're just insufferable. And they're just bullies,
Yelling at racist dogs. Oh my God, I have to look it up, Maureen.
So he talked about how his father he talked about his father's theories and how it disproved Jordan Peterson's, lobster theory. So
Oh my God.
that was his speech. And then there was Ros Ward. And then I got up and spoke. I was just like, God, I must have been, my naivety about these kind of people is what made me get up and ask a question. And, it's recorded somewhere, I said, yeah, I'm from the suburbs. And I just said, are we really wanting to protest this person? Like, I do think there are racists, there's Nazis. This man is none of that. What are we, what's this about? Like, so I can't remember, it'd be good to hear back now. It's been a few years. And then they're suddenly at Jordan Peterson's event, hundreds of them, maybe 200 or 300 protesting. I don't think most of them knew. And like at that meeting, there was about 10 or 20 in the core group, and then everyone around them were just allies and just supporters. And you just got to trust the leaders. And then that's all it is. And so you just become these allies who go out and proselytize, like someone was saying, the new religion. They are the ones that just, insufferably telling their families. And one girl was like, how do I get through to my parents? How do I make them see the truth? She was basically saying they're wrong and I'm right. How do I make them change? And I think I even said to her, just listen to them. Or I hope, the fantasy of what I said, it was one moment of bravery. And then I think since then it's been a downfall. I've been terrified. I go to pro-abortion, anti-abortion events, trying to film the pro-choice people shaking because they're so intimidating. But I think, after these couple of years, I really want to go back into that space with that core group and just be able to not shake with anxiety, with fear that they're going to destroy me, because they do have such confidence and they're so angry. And probably nothing's happened to them, nothing at all to cause that anger. So it's very interesting to, just to ask, to find out where it comes from, and it is, it comes back to Karl Marx, I guess, and Engels, and wherever they're getting that piece of education where the patriarchy and is it just the patriarchy they hate? Capitalism, yeah. And colonialism, colonizers, capitalists and men.
Putting something on an old to blame. Even, like I was saying earlier, there seems to be a lot of that happens when there's a conquest. You're pulling down symbols of the old order. And the eager beavers, seems to be so many eager beaver activists. Like there was division in the Vietnam War. You're either for the war or you're against it, and there'd be arguments and fights, such like. And that faded away, that eased away, and that there's also been
I didn't notice
some tribalistic stuff. And now this new religion, it's got what I was trying to say the other night was like going from the title, I was born in a dying days of the British Empire, lived in a place, and there was a dying days of the empire. And all the things now are just transposed. The pivot point's the ratchet bitch.
What
like
was
the
that?
new nun. The ratchet bitch.
Ratchet.
Ratchet bitch.
I was just letting Troy in.
Just like the nun of my schooling, keeping me until 5 o'clock because I couldn't do long division. That's what the nuns did. He's stupid. He's got to do this, and it's just like you do it, And it's almost, I sort of think, oh my God, this year's been like 1918 with the Black Plague or whatever the plague, the Spanish influenza. And then China arced up and was flexing its muscles. So it felt like appeasement in 1936. And then it's got shades. And I see a guillotine being wheeled out in Portland. And I think, oh no, 1789, this is going to be a bloodbath. And then on the radio, this country radio.
You know all the dates of all these historical.
Unfortunately, I'm a repository of
linking them up. Yeah, that's interesting. You're linking them up to today. Yeah,
because like nothing new under the sun, really. And so it just goes in these patterns, like a reset every 70 years, and every 200 something years there's a change in a civilization. Ancient Rome, it was kings and became consuls, and it became emperors or Caesars. So it lasted, say, 250 years. There was a major thing. And looking at empires, a lot of them have that lifespan. The Ottoman Empire was a bit longer. And to where ours been supplanted, whether it's by, the long march of the institutions. They talk about the common turn of Soviet Union was infiltrating America and such like. Either way, it does seem like a new religion. And this year has just been brilliant. What a brilliant, just all these things all happening at once till now. It's just like this Kafkaesque thing. Or did I give you the link for that Soviet movie? It was called City of Zero. It was filmed, I suppose, 1988, just as the Soviet Union. They had glasnost with Gorbachev and started to open up a bit and free up the West. They had perestroika, which was a restructuring of the stagnant regime. 70 years, that's how long it lasts, like a reset every 70 years. And Soviet Union, just a growth of, slaughter, purges, and persecuting kulaks or anybody with wealth, just stripping the wealth. And it's going to want it now, like, I hate Jeff Bezos. But all the ones with the real wealth, they will get away. It'll just be the ones that can't get away that they'll get.
Oh, yeah.
They talk about taxing the rich. Taxing
like
the rich.
The rich farm owners in
South Africa.
Yep, New Zealand too.
I was thinking next to Russia, that was that historical.
Ukraine.
Yeah, Ukraine. Like they just. Did they just take their land, or they made them grow the grain and then took it, and they starved?
Yes. I think Stalin wanted to collectivize Ukraine, and they were a bit rebellious. And yes, Stalin seized the grain and pretty well caused a famine. That's extreme.
But they didn't tell the Western intellectuals about it. They kept it from them. So Jordan Peterson claims that because they didn't think that it was that bad in Russia, that's why they think communism is so great. That one man, Mr. Jones, there's a movie called Mr. Jones, whatever his first name is. He went out to investigate or to see where his mother comes from in Ukraine, and just found all these starving people, and somehow escaped back to England, and I think they wouldn't listen to him or tried to shut him up. And there was even an American in Russia who was being paid off to entertain the Westerners that would come over and show them their riches from their communism, just by having parties and staying within the city. What is it?
So Westerners go, that's communism can't be that bad, and it's really kept quiet. Stalin learned a lot of his tricks about purging off Hitler.
Oh, yeah. What's Trotsky? Because there's socialist, I don't know if Troy saw the same debate that I saw, but they were debating this capitalist think tank, and she said, I'm a Trotskyian socialist. So I don't know if that's different to...
Trotskyist.
Variations of Marxism, I suppose, with Trotsky's opinion.
Yeah, that was her.
Really haven't read into that much, but Troy's on deck. Are you there, Troy? Troy in the house. We're just working on the problems of the world here, mate. But yeah, so yeah, I sort of go on patterns.
Troy and Joe were saying their internet was cutting in and out. So yeah, Joe.
Because these things come and go. For instance, say a decade or two ago, people would say that's a real generalisation. Stop generalising. They would shut you down all the time. There was that magic word of, oh, that's been really generalising. But now it's generalising all the place, you know. All men are bastards, all men are rapists, you know. All women are gold diggers. It goes the other way. Then it goes, you know, like, oh, just generalise, like all boomers just, you see comment sections based of all political flavours, which makes me think, you know, maybe in my tarot I'm the Hierophant, half in the cave, half out. I'll go in this cave and I'll be like, you know, believe the science, believe the science. I'll go over there and like, believe the Lord, believe the Lord. And similar sorts of levels of fanaticism, all with agendas to push. And most of them deep down don't care. They're only interested in themselves. It's their own selfish ends.
Yeah, they need a cause.
Yeah.
Because life's a bit meaning.
And when you're young, you don't want to see the
I think this is my cause. I feel like it's a bit.
Because when they said the patriarch harms men too, that I just sort of went, oh, no, it didn't. But hey, I was exploited. You started all those crap jobs for $70 a week, pumping gas, working like a slave. It was my first full-time job, and no room for advancement, no pat on the head, just expected to give more to make them richer. And
it's a movie I saw where they were miners, and if the men had families, they were the ones entitled to the better wages because they fed families. And then there were women that had Charlize Theron in it. It was a true story, and the women wanted to become miners, and the men were, a couple of them abused some of the women, and they got a court case through. But yeah, she said, well, I'm supporting my family, because they go, why should you work here? The men are supporting families. So yeah, it was like, it went from the men need to work because this is just how society is. Men have families, and then the women have the babies, and they've got their own struggles. And then it just became, well, I think, yeah, I love The Second Sex, the book, but she did talk about how the men's domain was the public and the women's domain was the home. But she wasn't trying to say it was a bad thing. It's just, this is how society is. If we read and go, oh, now I know how society is through time, then you get knowledge and you start talking about it. Not that you come with these rigid ways to get women out. Because she saw in 1949, she wrote it, that in France it was already happening. I think philosophers don't try and change things. They just observe and they allow people to gain knowledge, and that's the way you have power over your own life. But somehow I don't know if anyone even reads this book, but they quote it. And I just think, how can you couldn't have read it if you have these views about men, because she talks about how, you know, all the knowledge we have, that is from men. Like, men lived in the public, but then the women who were at home doing nothing, they read philosophy. There was women in high society that would read this philosophy, then they became knowledge, but the knowledge came from men, and their husbands didn't mind that they were knowledge. You know, they weren't going to be allowed to work, but they would attend, you know, dinner parties and have a say, and the men appreciated the insights of the women. And it's just, yeah, all different things happening. It's a big book and it's got lots of different chapters, and you can go, oh, you know, I'm a married woman, so you read the married woman chapter, and then the one about girls, and she'll always talk about boys at the same time, not just talk about the world of women. She'll do it in comparison to how men live. And it's just, I mean, yeah, and that's why I bought all these copies. I thought, anyone comes at me with bullshit, and even tries to, you know, quote this book, and I don't have a good memory, so I don't explain things well, but I'll just be like, have you read it? Do you want to read it? Here, I'll give it to you for free, and then we can discuss it. If you are a feminist, you have to know this foundation of knowledge, or there's just nothing. And I hear commentators say it's like history hasn't existed before, you know, Foucault or some of those recent thinkers from 1960s.
Crazy, isn't it? Isn't it crazy? It just...
Because you can't trust
all
any
those
knowledge.
wonderful
It all
things
comes
in
from
history, all those wonderful things that happen. And
yeah, and even just that they just did happen, even if by, you know, if women were in charge and we would have, you know, they think, oh, imagine the knowledge, because we're so perfect, what women would have, well, it doesn't even matter, because we're in this reality. This is the knowledge we have. You know, philosophy is just about where are we? Who are we? They need to learn that shit at uni, I think. First thing, you know, where are you grounded? What's your foundation of understanding? And they talk about worldviews, and they kind of dilly-dally around. And the teachers are quite good, but for some reason, because university is like run like a business, so they have to just cut it down to the bare minimum. And, you know, what's important? Well, gender studies is important, and queer studies. This huge bloody queer studies covers all these theories, and they tell you that the main point about it is that it's vague. That's the main point. And that could come from philosophy if they read it, but they don't know where, you know, how to ground it anywhere. You know, it's just queer theory, and a lot of it's pornographic and you know, inappropriate.
Well, what will you do with a qualification like that? Because I think in a fair and just place, you're complaining about climate. It'd just be nice actually to start planting trees, track the rain back.
Yeah, do the
and
action.
Be honest about the ocean currents and the patterns. So there's a drought every 10 years. Around
do the
here.
Action instead of complaining
ocean
about
currents that goes in there.
Oh, yeah.
But it gets hijacked with a lot of stuff. This is all happening. It's all going to die in 12 years, and all this. Like everything is. I don't think there's anything that hasn't been touched by wokeism. It's funny, woke. You told me about woke, and I went, "What woke?" But it seemed to bring it all together for, like anti-Vietnam protesting and anti-uranium. Then it became anti-Nazi. Then became anti-racism. I mean, the rock against racism. That's been going, and it's just building up and getting more power. Till now, it's almost just seems like it's out of the box. Where there's been a whole lot of zombies activated.
That somehow the conservative
made the wrong thing, and it's like, oh my God, that's a sin. And
the conservative side seemed to wake up, and we wanted them. Jordan Peterson was there at the right time, and somehow he got in. He was brought in and was needed. And even though a lot of young men or whatever watch him, I mean, a lot of women too, and now there's other speakers, and like people like Ben Shapiro, maybe he's a bit too conservative, so other people have come up in his place, and where they're accepted. And I look at my kids' content, and I think it's an amazing world that the kids are looking into. Whatever they accept as reasonable, they will upvote, or that will come into the public. They'll scrutinise it, and they kind of do it. Well, they do it as a tribal pattern. They're very into all the wokeism stuff, but I think that they're just going through the experiences of it, and where maybe parents are letting them have the freedom. I mean, I don't know, it could go both ways, but it feels positive to me but only because I sit there arguing with them, and I don't let them get away with when they're just over the top, the whole world's racist, or, just too soon. And then they'll get upset, and then we'll kind of...
So that it's like chains. Marx says that, workers of the world unite, you've nothing to lose but your chains. And
that's what Marx said.
Yes. And so the workers and still against the change. Oh no, it's racist, or it's the rise of right nationalism. People even say, oh, it's the rise of right-wing nationalism. You think, well, that means you want to burn every flag in the world. See, a lot of this ridiculous stuff doesn't stand up to any scrutiny. And since they've got academia, it's like logic is racist and Jordan Peterson is the king of the patriarchy. Lord of the, what's that in The Guardian? He's the Lord of the patriarchy. And I think I said it might have miffed you when I said he was a textbook, him and Thomas Sowell. They're sort of textbooks, and I'm a bit of a textbook. But I'd really like if Jordan Peterson said come in and just come out here and dance naked around the fire if he wants. I mean, I'll be inside having a cocoa,
he's quirky,
getting ready
isn't
for bed.
he? I love how he's in a tribe and
very well read, yeah, and you can glean from all that. Like he's got philosophy or just books of every sort coming out of his arsehole, isn't he?
And then all those early lectures, and the students are just riveted. And he tells that story of how he started recording his lectures because kids were wanting to. He recorded a couple or something, and then it took off. I can't remember, but
just save you reading a lot of books. Like he's absorbed so much information, it's got incredible memory recall to put it into that context. He'll say, well, the research suggests this.
Well, he knows we don't read, so he's just trying to present to us, something that the disenfranchised can understand. So he's actually, to me, he's like what would you say, a rebel of the cause, because he's, disenfranchised. And he's not even saying it's men. I think he's kind of saying it's working class and people pushed out of the woke crew.
Yeah, feeling like the religion of woke is just bullying people by yelling at them. And that's where it disappoints me, because I think, that perhaps these people are lefties, where the old type lefties, you feel like you haven't left the left. The left has left you and just got a bit more retarded.
I'm saying now, I'm not going to leave. I want to take it back from you people. And I got blocked today because she just goes, shame on you for enabling, I don't know, something about Trump supporters, if just that simplistic, he's a racist, therefore everyone that follows him are racist. And I said, come on. And then she just goes, shame on you. I just said, fuck off. Like, I shouldn't have, whatever. I didn't expect, that's disgusting. You're disgusting, not for the language, but just, or she said, you disgust me. So it was the first time I looked at people's words and went, wow, I would usually get very attached to how people talk about me, even though I think just because I haven't had the experience or the practice.
They all say the same thing. They're all saying the same thing. So
you get yourself into hot water, but you just seem natural, not naturally, but you're someone that just, I don't know, speaks your mind or whatever. I'm a people pleaser. Too agreeable.
Yeah. I was sort of wondering about that agreeable thing. The woman next door was a counsellor, and she said, difference between boys and girls are more responsible. And that got me thinking. I think there was a whole lot of messages I sent about the boys' testosterone, where they'll jump around, do crazy shit on their bikes and, set their hair on fire. And you see all those crazy stunts done on. Yeah, always getting hit in the nuts, on the skateboard on the. We're just out of control. And what worries me is when, these kids are violent, or got a violent, like saw in the paper last week, just the Herald Sun on that front page. schools to be divided because, you know, bullying for boys and girls make better learners? Is that the agreeable thing where girls don't have that crazy animal instinct running around in them? They'll sit there
I think they do, maybe. I think
and act out in another way because we're human.
Yeah.
We're human. We got instincts, you know, dominant instincts and tribal instincts.
Yeah, it's not the same, but I think, there's a point where girls get not forced, but maybe our sensitive nature, when a teacher or a parent says that thing that just clicks you into, okay, I've got to act like a proper girl now. I can't be a tomboy but because we are sensitive, then we become the girls they want us to be. But maybe boys, I've seen boys where, and I think I kind of think the way boys are is very useful because, teachers will say, oh, what was it? They're not responsible. Well, maybe they don't listen to the telling off because, they're not as sensitive and they're just going to do what they want to do, which is action and, physical stuff and being out in the world. Like now I force myself to go out and walk around my property and just feel the boundaries, and because I do deserve it, it's not that I deserve it, but we all deserve to go where we want to go in the world. And I think it is true that women don't do that, but it's not anyone else's fault. We just need to be told it's okay to do it. Just, we have to know ourselves. It's what Jordan Peterson brought. We need to learn our individual power, and it's from, the second sex philosophy woman, existentialism. We all just exist. The only thing that's real is this moment, and that means that all rules don't exist. We've all made it up. Not that it's the social construct, like they definitely believe we are a product of our biology, and then we're social, then we've got society. But really, if you realise that reality is just, and it comes in from all different religions and stuff that, seize the moment. Free will, I think that's a biblical thing, isn't it? We all have our own free will, and it seems like, a lot of boys probably monitor their behaviour and they're getting told off more heavily. So that's probably what's stopping boys, and they're getting told that their behaviour is wrong in a very more forceful way. When, in the past, and I don't have sons, but I observe, mothers, they try to curb what looks destructive, but they either realise or they can't actually change the boy. He's just too much out there. And I think that's a great trait, and that we should celebrate boys. I mean, we celebrate girls, but we should celebrate what boys and men have to offer. And maybe where it goes too far, like my visitor that came ranting about he's going to beat up my partner because he trashed the name of his woman. He's going to protect her and with violence, and so he's threatened my family and has no idea who we even are.
High drama.
Yeah, it's gone a bit far, but I don't know, he could just be a random broken-hearted man. He was a little twerpy looking guy.
Sounds bizarre. Because reminds me of that Pink Floyd The Wall video, is it? Or where they're putting all the people into this Mensa, they're all coming out. It seems like...
What were they coming out as? Was it just the meat?
Much the same as each other.
Oh, yeah.
But within us all, is this thing trying to bust out. I remember being really unruly in class. Primary school it just started to feel like glorified childcare. I was thinking that even then. And high school, it's like get you much like the other, like men dress much the same as each other. And like that film Wake in Fright, where everybody's expected to drink and all just be the same. And he says, well, the suicide rate's pretty high around here. And that's like 1971.
Yeah.
And
the movie?
yes. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
book and a film. It could be on YouTube.
Yeah, okay.
I think it is.
One
Yeah, the character felt like me, that John Grant, the school teacher. We just, he's contemptuous of this bloke who says to him, yeah, and even worse in the mines. What do you want them to do? Sing opera? And what I've noticed, some men just dutifully go off to the mill and don't question it because of our hard wiring, that desire to be not laughed at by your mates and to fit in and to feel like you've become somebody in society, which is Australia, mate, without actually celebrating Australia too deeply. Working, but shit job, mate, same shit, different bucket. Go home to the trouble and strife. And there's sort of resigned cynicism, but you don't leave or don't change anything until something extreme happens, or until you feel like in yourself that this is not enough, or I'm being exploited, or I want to exploit it.
Mm.
It's crushing for that dutifully off to the factories. It's just this huge machine. What do they say? A cog in a huge and pitiless machine that'll like exploit you to the day you die.
Cutting out a bit.
Damn.
They're not going to exploit me anymore, Perry. They're not exploiting.
Well, comrade, I'm with you. We could be digging potatoes.
I'm.
That's it. People have got to, all the complaining. They're going to have these ridiculous activists, and they're all going to be lined up and shot because once the revolution won't go the way they want it to, and they're talking about a revolution.
Oh, but they're all bullshit artists. You know that.
Doing a lot of damage. If they're getting kids in school now and woking them, converting them to the religion of woke. Maureen's froze.
Well, she has too. Yeah, but I reckon they
That's
might. What might be is the wing in the. We've got a whole floor, a whole section of the Royal Children's Hospital that's for gender confusion, shall we say.
Dysphoria, sister.
Yeah. They're now channeling kids into a direction with their fucking sexuality. I mean, it's bullshit.
Confusion and what used to be a mental illness is now like a privileged thing protected by law.
Yeah, but it is a mental illness.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's practically everybody, a lot of people I talk to, they've all got kids now with something wrong with them.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I was the only kid with a gluten allergy in my whole school, wherever I went. Yeah. You might meet, but then it started to creep in all this. My younger brother was Down syndrome, yeah. But all these new ones, SIDS or spina bifida or some motor neurone disease, it seemed to just happen more and more.
Autism,
spectrum. ADHD, like all these things wrong.
Personality disorders.
Yeah, peanut disorders. I never struck that before. Allergic to peanuts and anaphylaxis.
Yeah, well, that's that I do meet people. I meet people that tell me. I worked with a girl the other day. She's allergic to honey. I'm like, what the fuck? I said, how do you know you're allergic to honey? And she's like, oh, I had it when I was like 2 years old or something. I said, how old are you now? Like, I mean, this is the thing. People get stuck in these ruts and they just don't want to deviate their lives. And, I've just learned now, I mean, really, like, I've probably overstepped the boundary in a number of occasions in my work. But I'm actually now getting away with it because my method works. And my method is, we're all in this together. Yeah, let's talk about it. We don't necessarily say, you know, yeah, I'm just like, I'm over it. I'm worried, but I loved when you said this year's been brilliant, because I spent 8 months complaining about the lockdown and Dan Andrews, but it was the first break I've had in fucking 40 years. I loved it. It was silent in the city. There was no cars. I'd go to work when I, you know, like I was still working or working from home. And so I didn't want to complain too much, but I are worried about, you know, people and how they're going to work. I mean, I've got a friend that's gone back to Berlin. He's in this trial for the basic, you know, you've heard of the basic income.
UBI?
Yeah. He's in that.
Universal Basic Income. Did they try that in Finland?
Yeah, well, he's in Berlin and he thinks it's the best thing ever. And I'm like, you own fucking 3 properties, John. It's not fair. You know, it's a property in Turak, a property in Turkey, a property in Berlin, and a property here in Edithvale at the beach, a shop that's worth probably $2 million. And he's gone for the UBI. This is what I mean. And he's one of these woke, I've just got to get my wheat toast.
Yeah.
That was burnt. But yeah, so I'm just dumbfounded now, really, because we've really created. Yeah, I just think it's mad.
Yep. Well, if it follows patterns, observing patterns, since we're not that far out of the caves, we're influenced by the weather, the moon, the ocean currents affect the weather. And yeah, like I was saying, civilizations rise and fall. If it follows the pattern, it's God help us, because I can't think of the last positive thing anybody said to kids and didn't act on it was Bob Hawke saying no child will be in poverty by 1990. Yeah. And around the bit before that, when he first got in, he was a big fan of Israel and was talking about setting up kibbutzes so the youth could learn skills and try and build up a sustainable sort of movement. Yeah, like people that want to get more into producing stuff off the land. Maybe they thought there wouldn't be much of a get much money back on it. You know, it's easier just to keep Australia as a quarry. And nothing came of it. But I thought, geez, that would have, you know, on the real human side of people's health and being in the right place. Because really, people do have a wide range of interests. And when you're all just chucked through that school and it's just shoved down your throat, and the fear of not passing, you know, the fear of having to repeat because you haven't done this garbage that's pumped into you. Plus now add on all things of, you know, the kids are going to watch for domestic violence and perhaps they're going to inform on their parents or, you know, call out domestic violence. You know, like punishing a whole lot of people just so a few knuckle draggers won't get away. That's what it is. Chuck the net over everybody. And that is cold and callous and goes to a really dark place of the human mind. That's what I find.
Well, I think that, you know, I think we're at that stage. Like, I mean, because I work with a lot of teenagers in the youth unit.
Yeah.
And man alive, there's some fucking beautiful kids out there. And you know what? They weren't just told they were shit at home. They were told they were shit by the fucking school. And that's where their problems really happen. And the way they're told they're shit is they get asked to leave classes. Before you know it, they're acting out. They're getting asked to leave. They piss off, they start using drugs, then they start the truancy, and the next minute they've left school. and not one person has said to them, oh, it's actually okay what you're doing. Like I always say to these kids, it's okay not to be, not to want to learn or not to, but you got to find something that's going to create some sort of future for yourselves, because it's just a dead end street. If it's been creative or skating, just keep skating, keep creating, do whatever it is, but don't lay idle with, wasting your life on, getting stoned and bloody, these new drugs now, the Xanaxes and they're really losing the plot. I mean, it's not a great sort of direction to head in, but I also understand, because I was like that as a teenager and no one set me straight. No one said it's okay what you're doing. Do you need to talk about it, or what's really going on?
Yes, because we've evolved a lot from, say, like the spare the rod, spoil the child, and but it doesn't seem to have moved on to do it almost like that. Kids are not really cared about, but they're used. Oh, whenever there's a crisis, oh my God, the women and children were killed by the bomb. There'll be the cameras will be right there, or some crisis. Gee, I think there's some. I was talking to somebody and they said it's a battle between good and evil, and a spiritual battle. And you can get that feeling of these undercurrents going on, that the world's spinning. If a lot of people would stop complaining and begging for more money and just do some work, plant trees, heal themselves, look in the mirror, stop complaining, and help to make the community a better place. It's like, no, we want to change the whole thing down, rip it down, because this has happened. Because it seemed to be, I noticed in Melbourne, because it's a pretty boring city, really, sometimes, but the vegans were super gluing themselves to the road, right on Burke Street, and the police, Dan, let them go. And then there was another mob that came in and started doing something. Maybe there was someone murdered or something, and there was a big protest over that. Maybe that Eurydice Dixon or something. Then Extinction Rebellion put a camp. Remember that? It was a big march, and almost like calling for curfews for men, Sharia for men. That's where I think it's getting there. Pretty around the same time, there's a African gang, and they're getting these motels or B&Bs or whatever. Gangs all fighting each other. This 19-year-old African girl gets stabbed in the guts in a gang fight. Doesn't get mentioned at all. Just poor girl, had a law degree going. Nothing about toxic masculinity that was so prevalent at that Eurydice Dixon thing about men, and this has got to stop and no more after this. And then there's more hemorrhaging of government resources towards those sort of helplines and the cause. And so it's not self-supporting, and that's what maybe thinks that the government will get so big that it'll just go broke and they'll just have to start raising taxes and seizing people's assets. It'd be like increment by increment, but now they've scared the shit out of people with COVID. They can come and do anything, I think.
Oh.
A friend of mine told me about that anti-lockdown march the other week. Police surrounded them, 400 people. It was quite scary, my friend said.
Yeah. He said he was on the outside, but one of the other people we know to work with was in there and cordoned off. I mean, it's horrific. Whenever's that happened before?
And to be so light on those other, BLM had a lot of people say there's no way you could have kept it under control, but they could have brought the army in.
Well, I'm sorry.
So scaring the shit out of people, demoralising, surveillance. And And the propaganda, it's all just, you know, it's accusing us of the same thing that they're guilty of. You know, say the white privilege and the white fragility. A bit like in East Germany when it, I think before they built the Berlin Wall, it was like 250,000 people escaped Berlin. You know, it's like a lot of people, like a quarter of the population, like just ran for their lives over to the West. And when they put the wall up, they said, "Oh, this is to keep the fascists down." and some people missed it because free childcare, free education. I mean, you'd have to wait 13 years for a car, and the power might go out, or the flats were run down and really old, but everything was government controlled, and so there's a lowering of standards, no immigration, and that's what intrigues me about this religion of woke now. Soviet Union had next to no immigration. They're waving Soviet flags now, but they're also woke about open borders and all sorts of other wacky things that cost money and don't produce anything. It's not like ensuring the water supply. It's not like managing the forests properly, burning off. Like they haven't burned off around here. It's going to go up one day. It's been fairly wet, but I'm saying it's all leading to this totalitarian mediocrity, like East Germany. Can't see it going any other way. Talk about a revolution. There's always, can't think of a revolution where there hasn't been mountains of bodies and a lot of propaganda, a lot of bullshit.
None of those people are willing, though, to take up arms. Like, none of them would really, like those people, and that's what I think is really worrying because, you know, I know people that are all for free speech and protest, whatever they say. They're right behind. They actually think, like, I had friends that were posting, remember the two African girls who went from Sydney to Brisbane or something, and you know they had COVID, and they exposed them. They exposed where they live, their names, their photos were plastered all over the fucking newspaper. I know people that were posting their photos, saying that if people got sick, they should be charged with murder. I said, please get out of here. And I cannot ever, I'll never be able to speak to those people again. I mean, who are they to say? Do you know what I mean? They're saying that they believe in all these things, and yet they're willing to say that people that protest deserve to be locked up and deserve to be capsicum sprayed and, you know, corralled off because they're actually going to create, you know, another second, third wave. There hasn't even been a fucking first wave. We've got this, someone in England sent me this amazing thing today. This mother who's 70-something, her mother was in a nursing home. She went there to take her mother out. She got arrested. The mother got arrested. The mother's 93, got dementia. She was a nurse. She's a nurse. Right up until COVID, she was in that nursing home, actually going and feeding the patients. But then, of course, COVID happened, so they had to lock down the doors and, like, no one's allowed to come in. The police arrested her, and they've put her mother under house arrest, and they're keeping her locked in this fucking nursing home. She can't even take her own mother home to nurse for her in her last dying years. So that's what we've got to, and it's not just Australia, it's England. I mean, what do you think about this little virus, Perry?
Brilliant. It's what I could gather.
I know there's a virus. I know there's a
Yeah.
virus. I don't doubt that it exists.
Yeah. I really don't know, but it does seem to be brilliant that in election year, just before the US election, and the coordinated
The what?
heavy-handedness, that seems to be all coordinated. I don't know, there's a lot of conspiracies running around, but whether the virus exists or not, but it just seems to be such a coincidence that organised groups jump up, the George Floyd thing and martyring a thug, and that keep continuing that other long Trojan horse of just martyring thugs, just blaming white people for black people being shot when they resist arrest. Because the percentage of blacks shot are shot by other blacks, like 96% or something.
Yeah.
And that's like a sin to talk about that, or like I was saying the other day about the magic words, like calling somebody a racist, magic word, like a sin. It's like a sin. This new woke in the new woke religion, and it seems to be all coordinated so well that you get that uprising, or you get the George Floyd thing happening, but then it kept going, because usually you get thuggery a bit, but now it's just really retard. And in Portland, there's been Antifa like over 120 days straight of rioting.
Yeah.
Like firebombing Starbucks and trashing the place.
Yeah.
Going into neighbourhoods, and it's like, and that to me is like a tactic of just normalising chaos and violence, and it's just the noise in the background. Then people will leave, but it's got people used to seeing stuff burning, so they'll get used to that. And there's a lot of conspiracies, and I really don't know, but I do smell a big fat dodgy plan. Just see my plan, just the heavy-handedness. First thing I noticed was how unsympathetic Dan Andrews was. He was just sort of like a park inspector,
Oh, he's a monster. He's a monster.
And
guy sent me today, this house I went to. He is the president of the Black Rock Liberal Club. He's a classic. He sent me all this stuff, these statements about Daniel Andrews. I haven't read them yet, but he's also sent me photos. Dirty Dan posing with Benji Veneman, not Dino Dibra like it says, and Carl Williams at a nightclub in Melbourne in 1994. Don't forget Dan used to run a hot dog van for slain underworld drug dealer Michael Marshall.
Wow.
Yes, he sent me all this stuff, all these photos, all the proof. And I'm like, oh, okay. So there's people that are actually like looking into all of this, and they're saying, yeah, fucking the Silk Road to China, all right. Something else is going on. And I've said, look, I've got to be really careful because of my work. I try not to say, even though we're doing this on Zoom, but I try not to say too much anymore. But yeah, I don't know. Like I just don't like the way it's going, and I just don't like. I don't know. It hasn't affected me so much. It's not going to affect you. You're out there in the country. You've got your own little piece of heavenly heart. But are we immune? Are we safe? I mean, we're not, because we're all reliant on something in one way or another. I'm in housing. I'm reliant on the government for the house I'm in. I'm reliant on the government for the money I earn. So my hands are tied as well. And, you know, I haven't saved things like my super, and, you know, I've got nothing because I'm self-employed. But I don't want that to rule my world anymore. I feel like I've had so much just sort of good fortune on my side. And it's all very well to know about these things, but maybe we don't have to, you know, let other people in on our big dirty secret, or the big dirty secret that we all know about. Like, I'm not out there trying to be an activist saying Dan Andrews is a dickhead. I don't need to. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you what, unless you have, I mean, I haven't really watched the news that much, but you just don't get the feeling that the people that you would hope would stand up to Dan Andrews, not you or I, because we're just one vote. We're just grains of sand. But like the judiciary or the churches, and, you know, there's pictures of Dan with those gangsters, but I think, you know, there's this whole, maybe it's the World WHO and the, you know, they talk about that mob at Davos, the World Economic Forum. Look on their website and all their plans. You know, 2030, I don't need anything. I don't have any privacy, and life is wonderful. Yeah. Like East Germany again. Oh my God.
Well, he's in that.
Like, people are voting for this. People are insisting on it. They're not looking forward. They're just so angry at the capitalism.
Yeah.
You know, the boogeyman.
No one else, no other state leaders. Like, it's like the road to China. Dan Andrews is the only one who signed up for all that. Not even Labor. Brisbane signed up for these things.
The whole state, because I think it's the only place in the world that the whole state has signed up. Yeah. And this site is owned by, and the information goes back to,
yeah,
you know, it's Chinese American, but most of the overseas things, this sort of data collection. I had the next day after that podcast, there was something that attacked my computer. Like, it's a Mac, I asked Aaron, he said, don't worry about it, just don't click on it because it starts milking your data. Origin, Hubei, China, Wuhan, Hubei. It was the bug, yeah. So, because they're in social credits, and I was thinking today, like, that country it'd have no worry to have 1 million full-time super nerds all hacking the West and eating away, because they're an empire on the rise.
Yeah.
And our empire's just so full of soy now. Red-blooded, you know, attacks on masculinity. So what's that saying? History is filled with the sounds of silken slippers descending the stairs with the sound of wooden shoes going up. So the future will belong to whoever's got the guns, the law, and the will.
Hobnail boots.
High ratio of alpha males. See, the West has got weakened, just been undermined over and over. Undermined, weakened, lost its colony, so you get a lot of its wealth, you know, that sort of thing of empire and conquest. Well, wealth comes back, and they all wanted their independence, and most of the, you know, a lot of those try to have, you know, communist revolutions. And we just get weaker to the point, you know, in the 50s, it's sort of after the war, it's sort of like, oh, right, oh, it's great now, it's optimistic. But it was already just getting infected. And that old generation, they, after the war, they were still hanging on to the old generation before that, so they had tons of kids. Yeah. My dad said, I wish I'd known about contraception in the 50s. I would have never had all your kids.
How many did you come from?
Only 6. It's pretty small career. Oh. Yeah, starting at 1947.
Was your dad in the army? How come you moved around so much?
I think he loved it. Him and Mum. Yeah, I married in Singapore after the war, both in the British Army. Mum was in the British Army. And well, Singapore, then they moved to Adelaide in the early 50s. Then we moved to Fiji for 13 years. Then his brother was sick, so we had to move to Australia, so Sydney. So I think he just loved moving. I think he was that excited to get out of England. You know, rotting old England and through the Depression, just be nothing to go back to. Shitty weather and same old boring routine, a smelly city. But he was an engineer, became a mechanical engineer, then worked for the government. And popped out all his kids, yeah, where that 50s, they didn't need to have all those kids, but it was just all that, you know, virile men and fertile women and all that optimism of the 50s. But it just settled down to nothing, went nowhere.
Went nowhere. Nowhere. I mean, you know, I look at it and I think now, you know, I mean, my dad was very left wing, you know, friends with that fucking dick Bob Hawke. Was I telling you all that other guy today? Anyway, it's just amazing. And, you know, he was in the Communist Party. My dad was not allowed into America. He was in the Communist Party at Melbourne University in